I should have been sentenced to death. But because I was a minor, it was reduced to life imprisonment. When I came to my senses, I was tied to the defendant's seat with rough hemp rope. The crowd's chatter and shouting blended together. My head felt like it was splitting apart. Irritated, I banged my head. Too loud. What the hell is going on? Just then, a stern voice thundered out. Silence in the court. 3 figures dressed like judges in black robes sat high above. One of them, the white-haired judge, cleared his throat and began to read the verdict. The moment I heard the word judgment, unease surged up inside me. Fragments flashed through my mind. Murder. Dozens of victims. Those words kept pounding at me. The white-haired judge continued. In light of the defendant's grave crimes, the proper sentence would have been death. However, as the defendant is clearly a minor, the sentence is hereby reduced to life imprisonment. Wearing a prison uniform and bound with ropes in the middle of the courtroom, I stared blankly ahead, hollow and lost. I had no idea what was happening. The people around me looked at me with pity or disgust, but I didn't even know what I had supposedly done. One day, I opened my eyes and found that I had become a prisoner. I snapped back to myself in shock. Only then did I realize I was dressed in prison clothes and tied up in a transport wagon. During the transfer, I heard the escorts talking. That kid doesn't look normal. Think he's possessed by a demon? Otherwise, how could someone that young kill dozens of people? Another one replied, who knows? Anyway, where he's going isn't an ordinary prison. That place is full of lunatics. Once you go in, don't expect to come out sane. I was possessed. I'd become the youngest serial killer in the country. Apparently, in the end, I'd turned into a murderer. And as if that weren't bad enough, what made it even more maddening was that these serial murders hadn't been my doing in the first place. The characters and the setting were exactly the same as in my favorite novel, The Maiden and the Three Sinners, an extreme story with a shocking plot and a fanatically devoted following. Who would have thought my twisted taste in fiction would turn into a crime worthy of the death penalty? I muttered to myself in despair and frustration. Being transmigrated into my favorite novel wouldn't have been so bad, but why did I have to become a side character who gets falsely accused and tortured? At that moment, Yuzu reminded them they'd arrived and hurriedly shoved me off the wagon. Very soon, I was thrown into Nibelheim prison. True to its name, it was a frozen hell. It lay at the edge of the world, and except for a single passage, it was practically an island. It was on this continent, yet it was also a land forgotten by it. Yuzu threw me into a cell and said in a chilling voice, "You'll spend your first day in solitary confinement. Use that time to reflect quietly on your crimes." Then he slammed the iron door shut. What crimes? What a joke. Inside the cell, I muttered in despair and resentment. None of this is my crime. The original owner of this body didn't do it either. Why should a minor get life imprisonment? After calming down a little, I took a breath. Staying here like this won't solve anything. The defendant has been sentenced to life imprisonment. This Nibelheim prison is infamous for its cruelty. Escaping is almost impossible. No, I can't just wait here to die. I have to find a way out. Suddenly, my eyes lit up. Right, this was also the setting where the novel story began. The story started when the male lead arrived here. That made things much simpler. Because I knew the original plot, as long as I stayed alive until the male lead appeared, I'd have a chance to escape. I was delighted. There was a way. But very quickly, I started worrying again. The problem was, in the novel, the original owner was an adult. But the body I'd possessed was clearly a child's. That meant I'd arrived 10 years too early. Surviving 10 years in this hellhole in a child's body? If the male lead didn't show up, I wouldn't even dare dream of escaping. And he won't appear until 10 years later? Are you kidding me? Furious, I pounded the wall and cursed while waving my arms. You bastards. Does any of this make sense? Damn it all. Hearing the noise outside, Yuzu sneered, that demon-possessed kid's gone crazy. At this rate, he won't live long. Gritting my teeth, I clenched my fists in the darkness. Nobody gets to kill me. I will survive. No matter what, I'll endure it. I'll stay alive at any cost. 10 years from now, I'll live to see the male lead and escape this damned prison. Time flew by, and 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. That day, a red-haired prisoner was brought into the prison. Hila Coleman. Crime, fraud. Damn it, just my luck. Of all places, I had to end up in this hell called Nibelheim. As he was dragged along, the escort guard scolded him. Listen up, idiot. I'm only saying this once. The prison is divided into the East Wing and the West Wing for female prisoners and male prisoners respectively. The open ground by the central tower is the exercise yard. and behind that is the tower itself. Hella asked, why is there a tower inside a prison? Is it some kind of watchtower? As he passed the exercise yard, he happened to see a blue-haired figure sweeping with a broom. The red-haired prisoner asked curiously, why is there someone in the tower area? I was leaning on my broom after finishing one section when I heard someone exclaim, "Wow, who's that?" I looked up. A red-haired girl was being dragged past by guards, and the moment she saw me, her eyes went wide. Before she could even finish asking, from the distance came the sound of a beating. "Wait, no, please save me." The guard yanked her along impatiently and said as he walked, "This is the mongrel zone. Everyone here has a rank. Since you're new, you're at the very bottom. Lowest rank, treated worse than dogs, just as you can see." "Then how do you rank up?" she asked. The guard pointed toward the distant tower. "The tower I mentioned earlier. There are duels every week." The girl nearly broke down. "What kind of place is this?" Looking at her dazed expression, I spoke up. "Wait a second. You new here?" Hella said yes, thinking it's the person from before. I reminded her you just stepped on the area I cleaned. She hurriedly apologized. "Sorry, the guard was dragging me here. I didn't mean to." I glanced in the guard's direction. Smiling, I said, "Then the one who should be punished is the guard." That remark drew over a group of pushy prisoners. They jeered. "The newbie's pretty cute. Thought this place was full of ugly freaks. Looks like we've got a soft little target too." As they spoke, they reached for her. Hella grew frantic, whispering anxiously, "Isn't anyone going to stop this?" The guard only muttered, "What a hassle." Another prisoner laughed. "You just gonna watch? Come on, join us and have some fun." As they closed in on me, the commotion drew more and more prisoners from all around. Then, in the next instant, a dazzling light burst forth. With one sweep of the broom, icy blue magic exploded outward. The prisoners cried out, "What is this?" "So this is how it feels, huh?" I said, raising my broom. My long hair fluttered up in the magical current. Icy blue magic surged like a tidal wave. Hela gosped in folk. "I've never seen power this strong," I murmured. "May my broom faithfully deliver its power onto these prisoners who seek to do evil." At once, the broom burst into a brilliant circle of magic, twisting the surrounding air. The prisoners shouted in disbelief. What the hell is wrong with that woman? In the next second, the broom smashed down hard. A heavy thud rang out, followed by the sickening crack of shattering bones. The prisoner didn't even have time to scream before he was struck by an irresistible force. And with a bright, devout tone, I added, "Respectfully, my lord, this was all the work of my humble broom," while lightly sweeping the dust by my feet. Yet one survivor remained. A burly man with a vicious scar across his face stared fixedly at me. That woman, he was the leader of the group. Damn it, judging by her style, she's a long-range attacker. If I can just get close, he suddenly gathered all his strength into his right hand. A sinister dark red energy began to swirl in his palm. It condensed. I have to subdue her in one strike. Huh. I slowly lifted my head, with a hint of laziness and playfulness. There wasn't even a trace of surprise in my blood-red eyes. I didn't move a single step. I simply stood there quietly. Bang! The scarred man crashed into an invisible wall. A plain, brutal blow utterly shattered his last will to resist. His body was launched high into the air in an arc. Before he could even recover from the impact, my voice rang out again like a hymn, ethereal and cold. "Lord of Light, here is another one for you." Just then, the door leading to the top of the tower was violently pushed open. An elderly man in a high-ranking officer's uniform, with graying hair and a stern face, strode in quickly. He drew a deep breath, then forced out a sentence through clenched teeth, his voice brimming with suppressed fury. "You crazy bitch. Damn it, man." The gray-haired elder pointed furiously at the scene before him. His roar echoed through the empty stone walls. "You're already being punished, and you still dared start more trouble here?" I allowed a light sigh. "The old man's here. His name was Manhwa Nades. Cry murder." She was the only top-class prisoner in this prison tower. She was also the leader of the Wild Dogs, a group of desperate outlaws. Perhaps she had lived too well here, so well that she had become the apex predator at the top of the prison's food chain. All of that power came from a force in this world known as chi. It was a power that spread throughout the world and could be used by roughly half the population. It could create miracles or bring destruction. Depending on its form and scale, it contained endless possibilities. It truly could do almost anything. Some people used it to strengthen their bodies and gain unrivaled power. Others fused their power with different attributes to control nature or even read and control the minds of others. Some could even use it to read and manipulate another person's mind, turning a living human into a puppet dancing at their fingertips. It was a power whose type and intensity varied wildly from person to person. And Min, possessed incomparable talent and potential when it came to chi. The moment I awakened that power, I gained strength enough to overwhelm all else and stand at the pinnacle of the world. Bang! A loud noise pulled Min back from her memories. The prison official shouted at her, "What in the world goes on in your head?" Veins bulged on his forehead, and his voice rang through the spacious office. "How many times do I have to tell you? Don't lay a hand on the newcomers, and stop using your chi. Every time you get involved, people die. Do you think the guards enjoy cleaning up corpses after you every day?" In a calm tone, I replied, "But Warden, that was self-defense." After a pause, she pointed at Warden Ralph Gammon, the chief administrator of Nibelheim, and said, "They were the ones who came looking for trouble. This is Amy's." She held up a strand of hair to the light, speaking as though introducing a friend. "And this one is Angel." "What do you mean? What is it?" "That's your own damned hair." He slammed the desk and practically leapt from his chair. Tilting her head, she said in an innocent tone, "Oh dear, so they really did grab them. Why did you let those bastards pull your hair in the first place? Aren't the prisoners under your protection super troublesome people, Warden?" His face twisted with exasperation and helpless fury. I can't guarantee they'll all leave here alive, she said in a light, almost negotiative tone. "But I can at least pretend to go comfort them a little." "Don't just pretend, actually do it." The warden roared in final despair. Min let out a soft laugh, as if she had heard something amusing. Yet the moment she turned and stepped out of the office, that smile vanished instantly. Her gaze became deep and cold, like a silent sea soaked in blood. If they were the sort of people who could be reasoned with, they would never have been locked up in a place like this. Even a perfectly sane person would end up mentally ruined if thrown into this place. Long ago, in order to survive, I had already thrown aside things like common sense and morality, clinging tightly to the tiny fragments of memory left from my previous life. I was only barely maintaining the outward appearance of being human. But now I think I've really reached my limit. So, she finally broke the silence, her voice lazy and sharp. "I assume you didn't call me here just to lecture me again. What exactly do you want?" Warden Ralph Gammon leaned back in his chair and sighed heavily. "You really have no manners at all." Min laughed inwardly and did not care in the slightest. "Do you want to leave this place?" For a moment, Min felt as though her heart had skipped a beat. For a prisoner serving life imprisonment, what kind of cruel hope was this to dangle in front of her? Ralph knew he had found her weak point. In a steady tone, he continued and laid out his bargaining chip. "I have a job for you." His eyes sharpened. "In return, I will have you legally declared dead." In other words, his voice dropped like a devil's whisper. "I'll let you leave this prison." Sometimes an opportunity arrives so suddenly that it feels like a lie. "What do I have to do?" "Soon, a new prisoner will arrive, a true VIP. His voice was low and firm. "Your mission is to make sure he survives in this prison." Min stood where she was and listened quietly, then asked the key question. "Just survive?" "No." The warden denied it flatly, his voice carrying unquestionable authority. "Besides surviving, he must become Nibelheim's new leader. Those are my conditions. Can you do it?" "This place is nothing but a lawless wasteland," I muttered inwardly. This was not a promise one could make lightly. To keep some sheltered VIP alive in this land where the strong devour the weak, let alone make him the new king, was sheer fantasy. After a brief silence, Min turned around. All hesitation had vanished from her face. "Fine, it's a deal," she said softly. "But I have one condition." Slowly, she extended her right hand, palm upward. Rings of pure blue chi, glowing with a gentle light, began to spiral and flow around her fingers and arm. "Let us bind this with an oath and use chi to connect our hearts." "Fine," he answered stiffly. "When the task is completed, I will fulfill my promise and let you go." Their two hands clasped tightly in the middle of the office. "You will have an entirely new identity, and everything from your past will cease to exist." "As you command, my master," she replied softly. The word master dripped with irony, as if reminding him that from this moment on, the balance of power between them had subtly shifted. Meanwhile, somewhere completely different. At least, that was what I had so confidently declared earlier. I thought bitterly to myself. I really did talk big. The young woman raised a hand, her fingertips unconsciously brushing her smooth chin. Her brows were filled with indescribable confusion and irritation. Dressing as a man? Seriously, what kind of nonsense is this? A few days earlier, in the dim prison, clang, clang. With a soft thud, Min set a heavy wooden box on her crude bed. Casually, she brushed the dust off the lid. She paused. That spot will be empty soon. The moment she said that, the air in the cell froze. Two female prisoners, her right and left hands, looked at her in confusion. One of them had pretty short pink hair and was the first to break the silence. "Oh, so it's finally your execution? Boss, tell us the details. Hurry, hurry." That girl was Ramona, a first-class felon whose specialty was poison-making. "Quiet, Ramona. Damn it, I knew this day would come." Beside her stood a muscular woman with short, dark red hair. "Boss, after talking back to the warden like that, there's no way you'd be fine." Daryl was also a first-class felon, specializing in muscle and bone enhancement. "Daryl, do you have to say it like that?" Ramona shot her an annoyed look. "It's not like this is the first time the warden's replaced someone just because he didn't like the look of them." Yeah, that's basically it," Min admitted lightly. "How did it turn out like this?" "Boss, are you really going to die?" Ramona grew excited again and let out a shriek. So embarrassing. You can't say it, can you?" She covered her face with an expression of total understanding, then winked at the still irritable Daryl. "Ignore Daryl. This must be a little disappointing for you." "Huh?" Min's voice was soft, but it reached them clearly. "Hela." Hela abruptly lifted his head, confusion filling those olive-green eyes. Min said in a conversational tone, "Normally, I'm the one responsible for showing new prisoners around for the first week. This place is harsh, after all." But then her expression changed, and a thin smile curved her lips. She jerked her chin toward Ramona and Daryl, who were fighting noisily not far behind her. "Since things turn out this way, those two over there look reliable enough. They'll take over for me. Anyway, goodbye." She waved a hand as if leaving a dull party. "Say hello to everyone else for me, too." "Goodbye, my ass." Daryl roared furiously behind her. "Does she look like someone who's about to die? I bet it's hanging after all." Ramona's excited guess followed right behind. "Ramona, shut up." The clamor behind her was completely cut off by the heavy iron door. "I gave up my place and said my farewells," Min thought to herself. Now it was time to go to work. She was no longer the prisoner Min, but an unnamed operative about to begin a new mission. She pushed open the door, carried the wooden box in her arms, and stepped one by one into an entirely new battlefield. And now, was this real? They had pointed straight at me back then, so naturally I had assumed the VIP who needed protection would be a woman. But I never imagined this so-called distinguished guest would be a man. "You're going to the men's prison block." When Warden Ralph Gammon said those words, Min genuinely thought she had heard him wrong. "Say that again?" Tilting her head, she put on an absurdly innocent expression, as though she had no idea what he was saying. "I said the men's prison block." The warden's voice dripped with impatience. "Don't act like you didn't hear me." Min still wore that innocent smile, but her words were sharply provocative. "With all due respect, biologically speaking, I'm female, right?" Ralph was so exasperated by her attitude that he leaned forward and squeezed out 3 words through his teeth. "Then hide it." "Warden, are you saying the parts between my legs are detachable? What kind of ridiculous nonsense is that?" "I mean disguise. Disguise." Ralph finally lost it. He jumped out of his chair and waved his arms while roaring in frustration. "What exactly is inside your head?" Min merely blew out a breath, showing an expression that said what a pain, and drawled, "Then you should have said so from the start. You insolent brat. You have no sense of propriety at all." Ralph trembled with anger before finally collapsing back into his chair and pressing a hand to his forehead with a long sigh. "Seriously, where did even your most basic social manners go? Anyway, we'll provide a holy relic that could disguise you as a man. As for the rest of the problems tied to the identity of men, we'll handle those on our side. You only need to focus on disappearing." "I thought I had prepared myself for this." Min pressed her forehead against the cold mirror. The unfamiliar man reflected in it made her feel a wave of discomfort. But seeing herself in the mirror with her own eyes still felt strange. Still, this holy relic really was impressive. It didn't just change my hair, even my eye color changed. My overall build was about the same, but my bone structure was clearly that of an average-built man. Ordinary brown hair, green eyes, gentle features, a weak presence. Basically, the complete opposite of me. He really was the perfect model of an ordinary person that made it easy for him to go unnoticed. And the only fortunate thing was I wasn't entering as a prisoner, but as a guard. That identity would give me enormous convenience. I wouldn't have to share a room with the target, and I'd have far greater freedom of movement. In the mirror, I was no longer that lost youth, but a young guard with resolute eyes and a straight posture. My new name was Garrett. I was assigned to the men's prison block as a trainee guard. For the sake of this new identity, Garrett, formerly Min, spent a full 10 days chewing through that guard manual thick enough to bludgeon someone to death with. The boring regulations and complicated prison maps nearly made her head spin. 10 whole days had passed, which also meant that 10 full days had passed since the identity of Min disappeared from Nibelheim. In Nibelheim, there was an unwritten iron rule accepted by everyone. If a leader died or vanished for more than 7 days, a new leader would be chosen. 10 days, which meant that had already happened. I wonder if that person became the new leader. Forget it. That has nothing to do with me anymore. This way, Mr. Garrett. A voice sounded nearby. Every step Garrett took felt like saying goodbye to the past. The old me has completely disappeared. My name, appearance, even my sex have changed. But that's fine. Originally, Captain Stephen was supposed to escort you personally, the guard explained as they walked. But he'll be a little late. I understand, Garrett answered and raised a hand to adjust the cap on his head out of habit, the movement crisp and efficient. He took a deep breath, feeling the powerful force that still belonged to Min surging within this unfamiliar body. It's fine. Once all this is over, I'll truly live freely under a completely new identity. Another guard beside him pointed toward a tightly shut cell ahead and said, "The prisoner who arrived today is that distinguished guest. I've been trapped in this hellish place for a full 10 years. He closed his eyes and let 10 years of memories surge over him like a tide. 10 years are far longer than you'd imagine. I once naively believed that as long as I waited for the novel's male lead to appear, I would finally have a chance to escape. But this prison was merely one part of the male lead's background story. In the original text, his so-called escape was described in no more than 1 or 2 casual lines. That was far too thin a thread to pin any hope on. Besides, those so-called 10 years were only my guess. There was no way of knowing exactly when the male lead would arrive. So there was only one path left. Protect the distinguished guest chosen by the warden, and then make him the new leader of Nibelheim Prison. Today, the pivotal prisoner is inside here. This is where my road to escape begins. The cell door slowly opened. At last, I could see his face with my own eyes. This is the prisoner Mr. Garrett will be responsible for, the escorting guard said, stopping in front of the tightly shut cell and gesturing to Garrett. Garrett's gaze passed through the cold iron bars and landed deep inside the cell. He wore a faded blue prison uniform, and his short silver-white hair stood out sharply in the dim light. This was him, Prisoner Helios. Just then, the prisoner seemed to sense the heavy stare. Slowly, very slowly, he turned his head. In the original novel, he had appeared only in a few brief lines, not as the male lead, but as the strongest and cruelest villain on Ian's path of growth, the final antagonist destined to be defeated by him. Why? Why wasn't the one here the male lead, Ian, but the doomed villain Helios? Why was the male lead standing in front of me? To sort out the chaos in my thoughts, the original script of this world, the part one had long memorized by heart, began replaying uncontrollably in my mind. The story's male lead, the heir to a prestigious ducal family, was framed by his own father and stripped of everything. He was thrown into the notorious Nibelheim prison, where no one could escape. Yet, as the protagonist favored by fate, he somehow succeeded in breaking out, becoming the first legend in history ever to escape this place. After fleeing, he met the story's heroine. All the mental strain, trauma, obsession, and possessiveness he had built up in prison were released and healed in a classic adult's-only way through his passionate entanglement with the heroine. In the end, he raised the blade of vengeance against the imperial family, his final target of revenge, and completed his grand epic. That was everything I knew about the male lead of this world. Because he entered the prison under a false identity, no one suspected his noble status. But the warden probably knew the identity he was hiding. I had thought the warden's deal was my only way out. But now the male lead had appeared right in front of me. Should I grab hold of this lifeline? After a brief silence, a bitter, resolute thought tore through my mind. Absolutely not. I shook my head, my jaw tightening with determination. I don't want to rely on some escape plan I don't even understand, much less on the whim of a character I can't control. My reality is far crueler than that. I've already hit rock bottom and become nothing more than a fixture in this prison. There's no room here for vague hopes or complicated story routes. The warden's proposal is simpler and more direct. So in the end, I thought, a grim resolve hardening inside me. My first move as a guard will be to calm him down. All right, let's see. I strode toward his cell, arms crossed, giving off an easy confidence. Leaning against the bars, I smiled without wavering. No need to tremble like a little chick, I said brightly. I always welcome a handsome man. What was the first rule in that manual again? Guard manual. How to comfort a newly processed prisoner. He still looked like a frightened chick shaking in place. He froze for a moment before finally saying one confused word. What? I chuckled, completely unfazed. My eyes don't lie. I continued, gesturing vaguely toward him with my chin. Someone like you? You'd be very popular here. I winked at him. My smile turned into a conspiratorial grin. Don't worry. My expression clearly said, I got your back. Shut up. You're disgusting. He roared, his voice echoing through the damp cell. But I wasn't worried. In fact, I was quite pleased. Oh, look at that reaction. A strong reaction full of spirit is much better than none. Disgusting? Let me tell you, I care a great deal about personal hygiene. The young guard standing beside me shifted nervously. Sir Garrett, he whispered, leaning closer. If I may say so, your wording might be a little misleading. As the long-forgotten image of my true female self flashed through my mind, I suddenly understood. Right? I'd forgotten I was in disguise. Praise coming from a man. My mistake, I said, turning back to the prisoner with a fresh, radiant smile. I cleared my throat and put on my most charming expression. With a face as pretty as yours, people would think you belonged to high society. His face changed from red to a furious purple. Why you? He stammered, pointing at me with a trembling finger. He was so enraged he was almost shaking. Not far away, another guard with a more seasoned air tilted back his cap and watched the whole exchange with a blank expression. What the hell? Muttered senior guard Stephen. I've been keeping an eye on this newcomer, and it turns out we've got a real oddball. The trainee guard and I noticed him immediately and snapped into a sharp salute. Good to meet you, Captain Stephen. You like making fun of people? He asked me, though it sounded more like a rhetorical question. Before I could answer, prisoner Helios spoke first. Or are you just the unbearable type? What? I feigned surprise. Captain Stephen let out a low laugh. He really does look like one, he said thoughtfully, fanning the flames. Don't worry. I waved dismissively at Helios. You're perceptive. You got me. I clutched dramatically at my chest. It's true, I declared, my voice full of theatrical anguish. Every time I see a handsome guy, I get jealous. I become ugly. I hate him. I grabbed the poor junior guard by the shoulder and used him as the blind spot in my performance. I'm sorry, prisoner Helios, I cried, bowing deeply from the waist. Everything I said came from my inferiority complex. It's only because you're too good-looking. The cell fell into stunned silence. Are all the guards in this place completely insane? He seemed to be thinking, an incredulous expression cracking his perfect mask. Back in the office, Captain Stephen threw his head back and burst out laughing. Ha ha ha. I really thought some lunatic bastard had just come in. I gave a shy smile. So the misunderstanding was nicely cleared up. Now, they simply thought I was some ambitious rookie trying to get promoted and earn a flashy title. The crazier I looked, the less they would suspect my real objective. Looks like all that studying of prisoner files by the guards finally paid off, Stephen said, wiping his eyes. Leaning back in his chair, he turned serious. Anyway, all new guards are assigned directly to a prisoner to manage. It's mainly to help you get familiar with the area. You won't actually be doing much. Do you know what your prisoner was locked up for? That sexy bastard. He was charged with mass murder. He wiped out an entire village. Stephen continued in a grave voice. Burned them all to ashes. He sighed heavily and ran a hand through his hair. People who come here aren't rational to begin with. Not entirely, I muttered. Understood, I answered, standing up and smoothing my uniform. But there was no helping it. Let's see how well we get along, fellow victim of false accusations. This is the room assigned to you this month, I announced, pointing to the crude interior and simple stone bench. He cast a glance inside, his expression unreadable. Right now, you're a bottom-tier prisoner. In this prison, you can raise your rank by climbing the tower inside the prison. And the higher your rank, the nicer your room gets. I leaned against the wall, standing in front of his cell door with my arms crossed. I'm your guard. For now, I'll be assigned to you personally. So you'll be tailing me everywhere? More or less, but not exactly, I answered calmly. My task is to make sure that within 1 month, you do not die, suffer permanent injury, or lose any limbs. Most guards don't actually care about those duties. But I'll protect you. Give me a break. You're smaller than I am. I could snap you in half. Who exactly is protecting whom here? Prisoner Helios, I said formally, my tone carrying something he couldn't quite place. A golden, ethereal glow seemed to radiate from me. It was the manifestation of my inner thoughts. Looks like you still haven't awakened your chi. If you had, none of this would. Hey, your reflexes are pretty good. Now try hitting me. Hurry up, don't waste time. Whatever it was, in a burst of frustration, he lunged. He didn't hesitate. With a guttural shout, Helios rushed forward. His fist blurred, surrounded by a faint blue aura. It was the first stir of his undeveloped power. But the blow never landed. It stopped just inches from my face, effortlessly caught in my open palm. Helios sucked in a breath, his eyes widening in shock. Suddenly, I stamped down hard, pinning his lead foot to the ground. Using his own momentum, I twisted my body, pulled his trapped arm, and used myself as a lever. He was airborne for an instant, then slammed hard into the cold stone floor. The impact knocked the wind out of him. He lay there for a moment. Ugh, what was that? He rasped between breaths. That's the difference between having chi and not having it. Let me give you a piece of advice. If someone swings at you, go for their eyes first, I said, my voice calm and even. Most people don't protect their eyes. He looked at the hand I offered him. Is that part of your job too? He asked hoarsely. Not really. You're just cute. You don't mock me. He roared, scrambling to his feet, fresh anger flaring across his face. That was a compliment, I said calmly, raising one hand in a soothing gesture. Anyway, you still have a lot to learn. We'll be eating together from now on, too. You need to learn how to detect poison. It opens tomorrow, I explained. It opens once a week. Like I said before, each floor has its own trial. Passing it raises your rank. If you want, you can enter tomorrow. Or you can wait a week, since you just got here. They say the higher you climb, the closer you get to the outside world. Is that true? Yes, it's true, I confirmed. Which also means the higher you climb, the greater your chance of escaping, I added, laying the trap. But in the end, it's nothing more than false hope. I crossed my arms, my tone contemptuous, as though I didn't believe it was possible. So what will it be? But since he was the male lead, he would choose to go, wouldn't he? I thought, a confident smile touching the corner of my mouth. I already knew his answer. His gaze turned sharp and resolute as it met mine. I'm going in. A slow, satisfied smile spread across my face. Good. I reached out a hand and pulled him up. Then let's get along, Mr. Male Lead. I think that sentence became a silent promise between us until the day of release. A few days later, in the open ground outside the castle, an angry male voice suddenly exploded. Hey, you bastard! Helios charged over, his fist swinging in fury at another young man in uniform and a cap. The attacked youth's pupils shrank, and his body instinctively leaned back to evade it. The fist brushed past his cheek, stirring the air. Min let out a surprise breath. Clearly, the male lead Helios had a far worse temper than expected. Helios shouted angrily, "It's Sir Garrett, not Hay. Answer me. Before, you said you would protect me. Was that just empty talk?" Garrett's steps remained calm and unhurried. He stopped, and his faint voice came over. "Who knows? So, did you almost die? Did you suffer permanent bodily harm or lose any limbs?" Garrett continued, "In a place like this, these little conflicts are only the beginning. If you look weak, you're finished. If you seem weak, you're done for." Then golden magical light appeared in his palm, followed immediately by a brilliant magical attack shooting out. Afterward, he cast a barrier to block the magical attack and said, "Now, that is the kind of attack that causes real bodily injury." Helios's face darkened, but he said nothing. Min muttered quietly, "Because I have to hide my unique magic, my magical output is very weak." In the distance, several guards gathered together and whispered about what had just happened. Just now, a guard actually protected a prisoner. Which bastard did that? Who does he think he is? You felt that killing intent too? Garrett said, You felt that killing intent too? Helios replied, "Your generous little gesture was enough to move me to tears." Then cry all you want. Helios lowered his head, sounding aggrieved. "That's not what I meant." At that moment, Captain Stevens said, "Black-hearted people always want to climb higher, huh? But don't show off too much. I've never seen a guard genuinely protect a prisoner before. Stephen smiled, then changed the subject. Forget it. Back to business. A slightly mocking smile hung on his face, as if he were hiding some secret. Listen up. You lot are going into the tower. The words carried a suppressed force, like a sentence handed down by fate. A group of people in uniform gathered in the castle corridor. Footsteps rang sharply on the ground. Someone swallowed nervously. Those who had come to Nibelheim for the first time would not understand why they had to enter that tower or why they had to endure everything inside it. Men thought, no, either way, they'll all cause trouble. Gather the criminals together and sort them by rank. That makes them easier to manage. And it also helps control the number of prisoners. This tower was, in fact, the core of Nibelheim. It had 100 floors, and each floor had its own independent test. Simply put, each trial was about surviving under the extreme conditions assigned to you. Since the leader had changed, the trial conditions might also have shifted somewhat, but the general structure should be similar. The theme of floors 1 through 20 was insects and animals. Unable to help himself, Helios asked, what exactly was that pressure from earlier? Garrett answered flatly, shield defense, then added, don't tell me you know absolutely nothing about it. Curiosity is fine, but right now you should be worrying about how to stay alive. The moment he finished speaking, the outline of the tower emerged ahead. The cold stonework radiated danger. We've arrived at the tower. At the entrance, the uniformed commander ordered wanderers inside, guards to the waiting room. The crowd began to move, and tension spread through the air. Garrett said quietly, it's your first time here. I wanted to give you a hint, but with so many people watching, I can't say it outright. He paused, then lowered his voice. Be careful not to get swallowed whole, especially your legs. Garrett gave him a push. Come back alive. The touch was light, but full of expectation. Helios grabbed his hand and asked, what if I survive? Garrett fell silent for a moment, then said, if you survive, I'll tell you how I made that shield before. Now go on. Standing high above, near the tower, Garrett looked down below and murmured to himself, it used to be me getting thrown into the tower. This is the first time I've ever looked down from above. There was a trace of sighing nostalgia in his voice, along with a complicated scrutiny. At that moment, another uniformed figure, Kane, asked, you're the rookie under Stephen, right? I am Kane Dunstev. Just call me Captain Kane. Garrett said, it's an honor to meet you, Captain. Kane grinned. I get along best with straightforward people. Next time, just call me Big Brother. Hearing that, men wondered whether this guy had gone senile. Kane remained oblivious and continued, it's fine. Stephen said you're a pretty strange one. So, try calling me Big Brother now. Garrett hesitated, then forced out Big Brother. Kane burst out laughing, but in the shadows, Garrett gritted his teeth. This bastard actually made me call him that. Just because I gave an inch? I'll have to show this newcomer something later. The smell of gunpowder brewed silently. Kane said, I suppose I'll be the one giving this rookie his welcome lesson. Then he swiftly kicked at Garrett, but Kane felt as though he had kicked an iron plate. He landed awkwardly, both embarrassed and annoyed, and shouted, damn it. I instinctively protected myself with chi. Kane panicked. What the hell? Pouring chi directly into the body like that. That's something only Imperial Knights can do. Irritated, Kane waved him off. Go keep your eyes on that stray dog prisoner of yours. Garrett replied, yes, sir. Garrett walked toward the tower's observation point. He had to find that male lead. In the scene below, Helios was gripping a weapon. Inside the shadows of the tower, the surrounding prisoners stirred uneasily. Someone screamed, what kind of hell is this? Countless glowing points flickered in the darkness like marsh lights or eyes. Danger multiplied wildly in the silence. The first floor trial now begins. A cold mechanical voice exploded through the empty space like the summons of death. Go to the weapon rack and choose one of 3 weapons. Only then did the crowd notice a row of weapon racks standing by the wall, the rusty weapons gleaming coldly in the dim light. Next, let's see how many of these new bastards survive. Accompanied by manic laughter, dense swarms of rats poured out from the openings. Their eyes glowed with eerie yellow light as they surged forward like a black tide. Rats. They're rats. The prisoners screamed in collapse, and some turned and ran. Others rolled on the ground in agony. Help! I was wrong. Let me out. Helios rushed to the weapon rack, grabbed a long staff, and swung it fiercely as the rat swarm approached. The staff cut through the air and sent a cluster of rats flying. After a string of battles, only 5 people remained. Gritting his teeth, he fought while retreating, calculating inwardly. This won't work if it keeps going like this. I haven't figured out the pattern yet. A short-haired prisoner panted and said, I figured it out. They attack for 20 minutes, then rest for 5. There are only 2 minutes left in the rest period now. Helios's brows knit tightly, cold sweat dampening the hand gripping the staff. I can't keep dragging this out. He looked upward. At the observation platform stood a figure in uniform, arms crossed, staring coldly down below. Helios thought he's still watching me. Earlier he said, "Be careful not to get torn apart, especially your legs." That had to be a hint. So in order to avoid being ripped to pieces, I chose the long weapon. But what about the legs? From the corner of his eye, he glanced again at the figure on the observation platform. It seemed to move slightly. When he looked again, that figure had returned to its cold, motionless stance. There are only 2 minutes left in the break. Helios took a deep breath. Say something. Anything. I told you to say something. Not hey, but Sir Garrett. The prisoner beside him looked doubtful. What is he muttering to himself about? Should I give him another hint? Garrett slowly opened his mouth. Circle and weapon. Wait, that's circle. Helios muttered under his breath, tightening his grip on the spear. The prisoner next to him suddenly shouted, "Everyone, be careful. They're gathering again." Helios inhaled sharply. As the swarms rushed in, Helios noticed a rat. There was a strange circle on its belly. He understood. The instant the rat swarm closed in, he sprinted forward, aiming straight for the circle on the saw rat's abdomen. If he struck that circle with a wet stab, the spear pierced the circle perfectly. The giant rat let out a shrill scream, and its body quickly dissolved into particles of light. The rest of the rats instantly fell into confusion. Then his weapon began to glow. What is that? The prisoners stared at the scene in shock. Helios panted as he looked at his own hands. Does that mean I could use it all along? Another prisoner exclaimed excitedly, "Brother, did you just use chi?" Helios shook his head. "I'm not sure myself, but the most important thing right now is dealing with these rats first." He picked up the weapon from the ground again, his gaze resolute. This time, it felt like something inside him was about to awaken. Everyone's morale surged, and they wiped out the remaining rat swarms one by one. Helios felt that blindly killing rats would not solve the problem. Every time I use this spear, it gets shorter and shorter. I need to head toward the door those rats are pouring out of. With that, he ran off at once. Seeing this, the leading rats immediately surrounded Helios. Helios led the surviving prisoners toward the opening where the rats were coming from. But he stopped at the entrance, astonished. "What is this?" Helios frowned. "I thought it was just a straight wall structure. But now that I'm closer, I can see it's surrounded by a cliff, and this bridge is the only path across. I never imagined a place like this was hidden beneath that rat swarm." He remembered Sir Garrett's earlier warning. Be careful not to get torn apart, especially your legs. Could that hint have something to do with this bridge? Helios carefully examined the stone bridge and discovered circle patterns on its surface, just like the ones on the saw rats' bellies. I see. Helios suddenly understood. The first floor trial is actually very simple. As long as you have the aptitude for a weapon, activate it, cut through the rats, reach the cliff, and destroy this bridge. He raised his weapon, gathered the power of chi, and brought it down hard on the circle etched into the bridge. With a crack, the stone bridge split apart and plunged into the abyss. The remaining rats lost their path and gradually retreated. Then the weapon in his hand slowly lost its glow as well. The ordinary spear collapsed along with the stone bridge. Then the cold mechanical voice rang out once more. "Trial complete. Congratulations. The lowest grade trash have passed the trial. You are now qualified to challenge the second floor of the tower." On the observation platform, Instructor Garrett was clapping as he said, "The first floor trial is simple. As long as you have weapon aptitude, activate your weapon, cut through the rat swarm, reach the cliff, and destroy the bridge." Though it was simple, the guard beside him awkwardly stopped clapping. "Mr. Garrett, you can stop applauding now. But praise is still important. Let us applaud everyone who survived." Even I, as an instructor, am moved. Helios stood there awkwardly, not knowing what to say. Garrett let out a breath of relief. "Now, Mr. Garrett, please complete the prisoner transfer and report to Mr. Stephen." "Understood." Garrett turned and left, inwardly seething. That damned rookie humiliated me like that while we were waiting earlier. Just you wait. I swear you'll repay that insult. What's this feeling? It's like someone just arrogantly barked at me. Just then, Helios stepped up in front of him. "Garrett, hey." Garrett instantly grabbed him. "Not hey. It's Sir Garrett. You should have memorized your instructor's name by now. And you're too tall." The moment he finished speaking, he kicked Helios hard. Now this height is much more perfect. Helios dropped to one knee in pain. At that moment, Garrett held his head. Of course, I have to end with a compliment. Helios told her to let go. Don't hold me like that. I'm not some stray dog. Garrett thought, oh, but his hair is so soft. As Helios struggled free and shouted, "Enough already," she thought. Though it's still weak, he's already using a weapon skill. That's what makes him the male lead. More importantly, Helios walked up to Stephen. "Keep your promise. You said that if I survived, you'd tell me how to make a shield." Garrett smiled. "That's right. A promise is a promise. My goal as an instructor is to be a prison guard who keeps promises and clearly rewards and punishes. And I don't like people who disobey orders. I hope you remember that." Helios shut his eyes, tense with dread. "Don't tell me he's going to do that again." Garrett hooked a finger under Helios's chin and said, "And I won't be gentle with disobedience. I hope you remember that. I'll be counting on you, prisoner Helios." The afterglow of sunset streamed through the tower's windows, bringing this cruel trial to a temporary close. Helios knew this was only the beginning. Even harsher challenges awaited him on the tower's second floor. Garrett said, "During your lessons, you may address this instructor as your master." Helios looked at her expressionlessly, unmoved. Sitting cross-legged before the instructor, he looked up at her and pointed to the engraved sword and shield emblem in the floor tiles between them. "But what I want is a shield." The instructor looked down at the seated Helios and said disdainfully, "You really dare to dream. Saying something like that when you can barely even perceive chi is laughable." Helios threw his head back and shouted in frustration, red lightning crackling around him. "And yet you want me to spend an entire month memorizing basic theory?" He yelled, but Garrett merely replied, "Oh, please." Helios let out a loud, clearly audible sigh and covered his face in irritation. The instructor said coldly, "You cannot ignore the basics, prisoner Helios." Helios lifted his head, obvious impatience written on his face. He complained, "I know I'm a prisoner. You don't have to keep calling me prisoner." Garrett gave a wicked smile and offered a provocative alternative. "Fine. Other than prisoner, you can also be a wild dog or a son of a bitch. I'll respect your tastes." Helios said, "I'll just stay prisoner." The lesson continued in the grand summer hall. The instructor changed the subject. "All right, prisoner Helios. What is chi?" "It is a kind of energy, or rather, the source of power. It permeates the world and forms the foundation of this world. Like fuel, its form changes depending on how you use it." As Helios listened with a weary expression, the instructor's voice droned on. "There are 5 ways to handle it." Helios thought he said this 10 times already. Elemental, spiritual, musculoskeletal, materialization, and other. No one falls outside these 5 categories. The instructor raised 2 fingers and explained, "A person who can use chi is born with one of these 5 types. Depending on their natural talent and effort, they can make use of at most 2 traits." "Now, get up." Startled, Helios looked up from where he had been crouching and suddenly asked, "What are you trying to do?" The instructor looked down at him and said calmly, "This instructor has taught people before." A thought flashed through Helios's mind. "Wait, I'm not his first student?" The instructor looked away and asked contemptuously, "Does that matter? In any case, this instructor has learned from past experience that the best way is to learn with your body." Helios was struck with sudden terror and shrank back, eyes wide. "What?" Garrett looked down at him with a smile and casually gestured. "From now on, try gathering your chi in your stomach." Garrett suddenly clenched her fist. An unsettling enthusiasm shone in her eyes. "From now on, I will show you all 5 kinds of chi directly." "What?" Helios cried out in horror, panic written all over his face. "Wait. Explain it properly first." As a blue aura began to swirl around Garrett's fist, she calmly reassured him, "Don't worry. I'll only use one hand." Garrett's fist slammed into Helios's stomach with a sickening thud. A shock wave of blue energy tore through his body and knocked him to the ground. The air rumbled as his figure appeared in a cloud of energy. "This is the musculoskeletal type," her voice explained. "It is the ability to gather chi in a specific part of the body to strengthen attack and defense. Whether male or female, people of this type are usually big and sturdy, so they're easy to recognize." Helios doubled over, gasping, coughing violently from the force of the blow. Min thought, "So this is what becoming the male lead means. Huh, I thought he'd be blown away, but he's still holding himself up on one knee." Helios was still recovering from the strike, gritting his teeth. Shock and fury mixed in his mind. That attack just now. Helios realized the seriousness of the situation. Damn it. If I hadn't blocked that, I'd be dead. Is this guy insane? Garrett coldly ordered, "Get up." Next is the elemental type. Helios stared in disbelief, clutching his chest. What kind of training is this? It's just sudden attacks. Helios demanded angrily. Garrett simply answered, "Let's see." A fireball formed in her palm. "We could talk later. For now, endure it." Elemental type. They grant an attribute and make use of it. Water, fire, lightning, earth, and even mental force. They are usually long-range attackers, so their physique isn't very remarkable. Materialization type. The ability to coat existing objects with chi or create entirely new objects. Generally, those with strong imagination or exceptional ability to realize things possess it. Blue energy swirled around her. Helios, listening from behind, suddenly gasped. "Ow!" Then he collapsed onto the floor with a thud. Helios now lay utterly exhausted on the floor. Garrett smiled faintly and looked down at the defeated Helios. "Good. Let's call it a day." Still lying on his back, Helios weakly pointed out, "There are still 2 types left. As for the spiritual type, you wouldn't be able to resist it anyway. It is the ability to brainwash others or read their thoughts and emotions. This instructor is not particularly fond of that ability. And the other one? This instructor belongs to the other type. It includes abilities that do not fall under any of the above. This instructor can use all abilities, just only a little of each. Because I can freely use all powers, I was able to reach the top of this hellish prison." Lying on the floor, Helios tiredly touched his forehead. The instructor's voice continued, "It isn't especially useful, but it suits a beginner like prisoner Helios." In one sudden, sharp movement, the instructor knelt down and grabbed Helios by the hair, forcing his head back. Her hand gripped his hair tightly, making him weakly ask, "Hey." With a condescending smile, the instructor corrected him. "Not hey. It's Sir Garrett," she added. "It seems my dear assigned prisoner has no intention of remembering that. A few days ago, my master told me that pulling someone's hair like that is not the proper way to do things. But I thought it was a kind of compliment." Helios followed that train of thought. "So, last time, when he grabbed my hair and pulled it, you see, this instructor hasn't treated anyone gently in a very long time." Helios thought, what on earth is wrong with this person? Even someone as clueless as me knows it's strange for a prison guard to treat a prisoner like this. And yet he protects me. He teaches me. Who exactly is he? The instructor crossed her arms, breaking the silence, and asked Helios, "So then, of the 3 attacks you blocked today, which one was easiest?" Thoughtful, Helios placed a hand on his chin. The instructor added, "Or just whichever felt easier to deal with." A brief flashback showed the instructor's spear attack. Helios answered, "The materialization type was the easiest. When your spear hit me and sent me flying, it felt better than the other attacks." That made the instructor realize something. Generally speaking, it is easier to defend against an attack from someone with the same type of ability. Therefore, prisoner Helios, the instructor concluded firmly, "You are a materialization type user." Helios exploded. "Wait, you did all that just to figure this out?" The instructor answered calmly, "Learning with the body is the fastest way. Thanks to that, I could discover it immediately, couldn't I?" Helios lay on the floor with his hands behind his head and shouted in frustration, "This is so annoying. The fact that what you're saying makes sense only makes it more irritating." Minhwa let out a dry little laugh, her face unreadable. A knowing smile appeared on Helios's face as he continued, "Of all the lunatics I've ever met, you're the craziest." Then he addressed the instructor directly. "Sir Garrett." Garrett poked Helios's flustered cheek. "Is it really that hard? I try to hold back as much as possible, but you still have a long way to go." Helios snapped back. "What are you even talking about? You're impossible." Helios's inner thoughts revealed his confusion. "Honestly, I still don't really understand. I don't understand why he's helping me, or what kind of person he is." His thoughts continued. "But carrying all of this alone is getting harder and harder. Still, right now, I don't hate this warmth." He opened his eyes, his expression gentle, his face resting on one hand, and ended his train of thought. "So, your mysterious kindness." He looked up and said to the instructor with a soft, knowing smile, "Do as you like. In return, you have to take full responsibility." Tower, 96th floor. A pink-haired woman let out a huge yawn. Behind her, A bald man lay on the ground, foaming at the mouth. Resting her chin on one hand, the pink-haired woman lazily complained, The captain is late. Ramona's specialty, poison and toxin creation. A dark-haired man secretly observed her from behind another pillar. His face was full of terror. What is with that woman? He thought. He continued musing, completely baffled. She only used to appear around the 80th floors. How did she end up on the 96th? He came to an unsettling conclusion. Has she been hiding her strength all this time? Ramona stood alone in the middle of the grand hall. She muttered to herself, "It's been 2 months since he last showed up." There was a trace of impatience in her voice. Ramona thoughtfully touched her chin. Come to think of it, doesn't our captain cause trouble every 2 months? Feels about right. It's about time he went crazy again. The instructor coldly ordered, "Jump." Helios and the instructor both stood ready. Helios looked utterly baffled, unable to understand the order. Looking at the instructor, his face full of confusion, he asked, "What?" Smiling brightly, the instructor said patiently. This instructor is patient enough to say it twice. "Trust me." Then, "Jump." Helios pointed below to a deep pit full of spikes and shouted in horror, "How about clearing out what's down there first?" He continued, panic thick in his voice, "Are you trying to get us killed?" Looking at the instructor's back, Helios muttered in frustration, "What kind of reward is that supposed to be?" 2 months had passed, and Helios had safely reached the 7th floor. Another guard approached the instructor and handed her a note. The guard reported, "Rookie, orders came down from above. You've been assigned more prisoner guarding duties." "Did you offend someone upstairs?" the guard asked, while thinking they usually give easy work to newcomers. The instructor answered blandly, "Who knows?" She thought, "My work life has always been perfectly normal." In a flashback, a bearded man cried out after being scalded by hot tea, "Who serves tea this hot?" The instructor calmly replied, "Sir, the ideal temperature for tea is 100 degrees Celsius." In another flashback, the bearded man furiously demanded, "Are you insane? Who burns everything down just because we told you to clean the place up?" The instructor replied, "Sir, you said you never wanted to see it again." The narration continued. "They told me to organize the files, so I did." In the final flashback, an officer shouted, "You lunatic! We said don't let unauthorized people in. How did you end up not even letting the chief in?" The instructor's narration continued. "Then they told me to guard the warehouse, so I did." The instructor answered calmly, "I was simply following orders exactly." Officer Min nodded with satisfaction, thinking, "Very good. Thanks to this, I can keep a closer eye on the male lead too." At that moment, Helios was confronting the instructor over the spike-filled pit below. He asked, "You put that death trap down there and still want me to jump?" The instructor looked down at Helios from above and said, "You lack faith in your master." Helios retorted, "It's hard to trust someone who nearly beat me to death with a training punch." The instructor explained, "This is top-tier training. You're a materialization type. Your ability will grow best under this kind of extreme condition." Helios shouted angrily, "That still doesn't mean you should create a real near-death experience." The instructor coldly fired back, "Better here than dying in the tower, isn't it?" Looking at Helios, she continued her instructions. "Now, while you're falling, try to think of anything that can save your life." Helios thought, "He has a point. I have nothing to say to that." The instructor suddenly approached Helios. He stepped back in surprise and stammered, "Wait, what?" Before he could finish, the instructor had already shoved him down. As Helios fell, he thought in terror, falling. Helios plummeted through the air, screaming in terror, "You really are insane." Meanwhile, the instructor cheerfully waved goodbye from above. Then she burst out laughing. Helios lay there exhausted atop a huge glowing golden spiderweb, panting heavily. Looking down, the instructor smugly said, "See? I told you could do it." Helios covered his face with one hand and said nothing, clearly frightened out of his mind. Seeing him lying there motionless, the instructor asked in confusion, muttering to herself, "Don't tell me you're hurt. What's going on here?" Looking down at him with a satisfied smile, the instructor asked, "Still haven't figured it out? This is a world that doesn't reward passivity." The instructor's eyes sharpened. "You'll understand soon enough. Whether inside the group or outside it, someone was watching him." Sharp pink eyes swept across the darkness. The warden rejected the thought. Too hasty for them, she thought. That was probably only the second day. A blonde, buzz-cut prisoner approached Helios with a group of men and teasingly said, "Hey, cutie, got a moment to come with me?" Both Helios and the instructor frowned. Helios let out a puzzled sound. Judging from the familiar face and the sword, he was a senior guard who wasn't even responsible for this area. What were those senior guards doing? One man peered out through a crack in the cell door, while another brooded inside his cell. An information panel revealed their connection. Ah, so he's the source of the trouble. A scar-faced, vicious-looking man whispered, that arrogant bastard. He went on threateningly. He's gotten too close to that new guard. Today, I'm going to teach him a lesson. The blonde, buzz-cut prisoner taunted. Hey, are you deaf or what? Just because a guard dotes on you, you think you're so special now. Helios's eyes widened. What is this? He thought in alarm. His body was bound by an invisible force. Why can't I move? He kept thinking. The blonde prisoner's face rose in his mind. It's like he's suppressing me with pure force. Suddenly, the instructor's hand reached toward Helios, and Helios's eyes widened further. Tension flashed across Helios's face. The instructor grabbed his hand and said, I heard they're serving meat today. She urged him on. If you're slow, there won't be any left. Let's go. Helios thought, the moment he released the pressure, my strength came back. Confusion still lingered on his face. Watching the instructor walk away with Helios, the blonde prisoner shouted in shock. What the hell? He thought furiously. I was pinning him down with telekinesis. How'd he break free so easily? Who the hell is this guy? The blonde prisoner shouted, Stop, raising his hand. How dare a low-ranking guard interfere with me here? I don't know what trick he used. The instructor thought, I forgot his name. Then she remembered. The instructor spoke the name. Senior Guard Groji. She added coldly, assaulting a guard is a serious crime. Groji shouted angrily, You! What the hell are you talking about? At the same time, dark energy gathered in his hand. He was preparing to attack Manhwa. Watching this unfold, Groji suddenly collapsed to the ground, writhing in pain. Groji found that he could not move at all and asked in terror, Why? Why can't I move? Horror dawned on him. No way. Is he using telekinesis too? Groji stretched out a trembling hand toward the instructor, staring at her in fear. This isn't like mine, he thought furiously. It's far stronger. The instructor said to Helios, Look carefully, prisoner Helios, whether inside the tower or outside it. This is not a place that runs on reason. From now on, you will face countless trials. Walking toward the terrified prisoners, the instructor said, and this is just one of them. Sweat poured off Groji as he stammered. Don't come closer. Stay away from me. The instructor said calmly. The solution is simple. She flicked a finger at Groji and knocked him to the ground. With elegant ease, she formed a flicking gesture. Like this. Just give them a proper flick on the forehead. Groji writhed on the ground in pain. The instructor coldly stepped on Groji's hand. As Helios watched Groji scream in agony, the instructor explained, telekinetic types usually channel their power through their hands. Helios and two other prisoners looked at the instructor as she continued, so it's best to cripple them completely. This time is only a warning. I'm stepping lightly. Helios looked on in shock when two daggers suddenly flew past him and embedded themselves in the wall. Helios asked in confusion, What in the world, daggers? He thought, those things just came flying out of nowhere. One prisoner grabbed another by the collar and angrily demanded, Was it you? Did you throw them? The other prisoner answered in panic. The squad leader just went down. How could I possibly have time to throw daggers now? The instructor sighed. I'll let my guard down, since the main attacker is down. She extended her hand, golden energy gathering in it. We'll switch people, Helios announced. From now on, every action counts as self-defense. She materialized a gleaming broom. Helios stared at the weapon in disbelief. The instructor smiled and snapped her fingers. Go! The two prisoners clung to each other in terror, while the broom swung mercilessly at them. Helios used the broom to knock one prisoner down. The instructor asked, Did you see that? That is the final form of your materialization type. A self-directed weapon, one that can move on its own. The idea that only swords and spears count as weapons. Helios looked at the instructor in shock. What? The instructor answered, My captain is a materialization type, so I can borrow a bit of his power. Helios thought. He said he could only use part of any ability. Then he thought again, just who is this guy? Looking at the cut on the instructor's face, Helios asked, Is your cheek okay? The instructor smiled and lightly touched her cheek. Wow, my student is worried about me. Helios answered frankly, Of course I'm worried. I don't want my teacher to get hurt. Min thought, he called me teacher. Turning away, the instructor answered, I'm fine. Helios insisted, Answer me. The instructor thought, Anyway, not getting hurt isn't that hard. That night, rumors spread like wildfire. An older officer angrily demanded, Are you insane? A senior prisoner was knocked unconscious by a new guard. Min smiled and gave a thumbs up, confidently replying, "Don't worry, sir. I handled everything according to the rules." "Cut the nonsense," the officer snapped. "Rules or no rules, you shouldn't have struck first." He continued, scolding her. "I told you to keep a low profile." Min absent-mindedly rubbed her ear, thinking, when you're around someone like that, staying low profile is definitely an option. The officer covered his face with one hand and sighed. "The real problem is you. You were supposed to be his assigned guard, but instead you hover around him like a private watchdog." Min answered calmly, "I was only carrying out orders, sir." The officer shouted angrily, "You could have let him take a light beating." He continued, thinking as Helios's silhouette appeared in his mind. "Keep a reasonable distance. Observe from the side. He's the male lead anyway. In the end, he'll overcome the trials on his own. But I know better than anyone how hellish this prison is, surrounded by evil prisoners. A twisted and corrupted cesspool, far worse than the outside world imagines. And he's still too weak, and too pretty to bear seeing broken." Tilting her head, Min made the officer stammer, "Why, you're insane." She retorted, "Fine. If you don't like the way I handle things, then you should take care of him yourself. So what did you want today?" The officer answered, as sharp as ever for someone so filthy. He gave the order. "Starting tomorrow, your role will change. The details will be conveyed through orders. Now, get out." Min answered calmly, "All right, then I'll take my leave." The officer watched Min leave and thought, "I can't just throw her away over something this minor. She's the kind of person who would do anything for trouble. No goals, no desires, nothing to lose. That makes her a perfect chess piece. From now on, that madman's role will be in the library." Another guard said to the instructor, I really don't understand you. No matter how badly you want to climb the ranks, you actually accepted this punishment." He continued asking. The instructor replied calmly, "It's fine." The other guard said, "Well, if you say so, then there's nothing for me to argue about." He tossed a ring of keys onto the table. The instructor said, "All right, let's go." In the cell, Helios was sitting against the wall when the cell door opened. The instructor called out, "Prisoner Helios, come out." She announced, "As punishment for causing a disturbance, this cell will be used temporarily." Looking inside, Helios saw cobwebs in the corner. "Is that 2 beds? Is this a 2-person cell?" he thought. A voice said, "Oh, you got here first." Helios looked at his new cellmate. "Welcome." Helios smiled as the formal introduction was made. "Prisoner Helios, this is your cellmate from today onward, Garrett. From now on, as cellmates, the mission to protect the target remains unchanged." Helios looked at the instructor and quietly asked, "Why are you here?" The instructor recalled her order, "Protect the VIP around the clock." Inside the cell, another guard stood with Helios and the instructor. The guard explained, "The higher-ups said the 2 of you require special management, so for now you'll use the same cell. Also, starting next week, you'll be sent directly to the 20th floor of the tower. Of course, both of you together." The guard added, "I'll unlock the handcuffs." Helios thought, what is going on? The guard locked the cell door, leaving Helios there. The instructor said, "Well then, from now on, do your best to survive." Looking at the handcuffs on her own wrists, the instructor asked in disbelief, "What exactly is this?" Garrett answered, "Just like you heard." Helios asked with a trace of mischief, "You're not a guard anymore? Then what should I call you?" Garrett said, "Is that what matters right now?" Helios shouted angrily, "You never killed anyone. Those bastards must have banded together." The instructor replied, "I know. They're probably all alive and well." Helios asked in confusion, "Then why?" The instructor explained, "Because the higher-ups want me trapped in here." Helios said in disbelief, "What? That's ridiculous. Those guys struck first." The instructor countered, "Are you looking for fairness and reason in this place? I told you long ago that searching for law and morality here is a mistake. Since we're in the same boat now, let's settle how we address each other first." Helios asked, "Don't you resent this at all?" The instructor answered, "Not particularly. I caused trouble, so I bear the responsibility. Simple." Min thought, this situation isn't bad at all. Groji's appearance complicated things, but the warden seems to have made use of it, so the result is satisfactory. Now, by entering the main building as his cellmate, I can monitor and protect Helios 24 hours a day more easily. And the situation with the tower is the same. We're to enter the 20th floor immediately. For Helios, who has only just reached the 8th floor, going to the 20th is basically a death sentence. but they said I have to go with him, which means I'm supposed to carry him through. I'll give you a hellish limousine ride. Helios, she thought. Helios covered his face with one hand. What is this even supposed to be? More importantly, about what to call me. Looking irritated, Helios said, forget the form of address. Call me whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Helios asked, then what are you going to do next? What else can I do? Min said grumpily, I'm a prisoner now. Obviously, I should act like a prisoner. Suddenly, Min reached out and pulled up Helios's sleeve, exposing the bruises on it. Helios jumped back and cried out, what are you doing? Min examined the marks, frowning. As expected, there are signs of beatings everywhere. It's worse than when he came out of the tower. Looks like after the rumor spread that a guard was protecting you, you got dragged into a lot of trouble. Why are you asking about that? Helios looked evasive. Of course I'm asking. I mean your injuries. You were beaten. Min pressed on. Where were you hit? Who hit you? Tell me. Helios said, what does me getting beaten have to do with you? How could it have nothing to do with me? You must have been beaten because of me. Min's tone sharpened. Helios said, why would that be your fault? It isn't. Min moved closer and asked, are you saying no one hit you while mentioning my name? Instead of trying to dodge the question with vague answers, tell me the truth. Flustered, Helios said, there wasn't anyone like that. All right. More importantly, what's with that tone of yours? Then Min seemed to remember something, right? About how you should address me. Don't call me master. The 20th floor of the tower is no joke. If you don't start learning properly right now, you'll die. So call me master. Helios hesitated, but in the end he still murmured, understood. Master. Good boy. Min nodded in satisfaction. As I said before, things get fairly tricky starting from the 20th floor. You can resent me for making you go. You can resent me for sending you there. I don't resent you, Helios answered at once. Oh, even if you don't need to pretend to be so nice to me, I'll still teach you properly. Did you take me for the kind of person who just says empty words? Helios sounded dissatisfied. Aren't you? Min laughed. Of course not. And from the start, none of this was your fault. Why would I blame you? Stop telling me to call you master already. Helios sounded impatient. At that moment, Min said, Helios, come here. What for? Helios got up and walked over. You may complain, but you still obediently come help me. Turn off the light, my disciple. Outside the window, Helios let out angry grumbles. Night deepened, and the cell was pitch black, with only a faint thread of moonlight filtering in from outside. Helios tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. Min's voice sounded in the darkness. Don't you feel wronged at all? I'm fine, Helios answered softly, then turned over as if to sleep. In his dreams, Helios murmured in pain, massacre. The entire village had been massacred, then burned to the ground. Helios jolted awake. Cold sweat soaked his prison uniform. He gasped for breath, his eyes full of terror and fury. Helios steadied his breathing, his voice low and firm. Of course I resent him. I will never forgive him. I have to find a way to return to the duchy and take revenge on my damned father. So I have to survive. No matter what happens, I will survive and finish my revenge. Heavy footsteps echoed through the dim stone corridor. A guard escorted two men in blue prison uniforms. The guard stopped and announced, orders from above. The two of you require special management, so for now you'll share one cell. As he spoke, he took out a key. Also, starting next week, you will immediately enter the 20th floor of the tower. Both of you together, of course. With a sharp click, he removed the handcuffs from the white-haired young man. The white-haired youth widened his violet eyes and whispered in disbelief, "What is going on?" Then the heavy iron door slammed shut and locked. The guard's cold voice came from outside. "Well then, from now on, do your best to survive." Inside the cell, the white-haired youth abruptly turned to the companion beside him, his eyes full of shock and confusion. He stammered, "What exactly is this about?" Min, however, looked completely at ease, even faintly amused, as she replied, "Just like you heard." She looked the other over and corrected herself. "Prisoner Helios, you're not a guard anymore. What should I call you now? Is this really the time to be talking about that?" His emotions finally erupted. Clenching his fists, he growled angrily, "You never killed anyone." He continued shouting, "Those bastards were obviously all working together." Then his voice dropped, filled with confusion. "I know they're probably all still alive and well. So what?" Min calmly gave him the answer. "Because the higher-ups want me trapped here. And what is that supposed to mean? That's absurd." Helios argued back. "That bastard struck first." Min looked straight at him and asked coldly, "Are you looking for fairness and reason in this place?" Helios fell silent for a moment. The cell sank into a heavy stillness. The white-haired youth, Helios, sighed and said to Min, "I've already told you many times. Looking for lawfulness and morality here is a mistake. With that, Helios clenched his fists. Unbothered, Min suggested, since we're in the same boat now, let's settle how we should address each other first. Don't you feel even a little resentment? Helios asked in disbelief. Not really, Min answered calmly. I caused trouble, so I have to take responsibility. It's simple. Helios let out a helpless little scoff. Must be nice for things to be that simple. And yet, from Min's perspective, the situation was not bad at all. She thought, although Groji's appearance complicated things, the warden seems to have used his head. The result is still fairly satisfactory. Now that I've entered the main building as his fellow prisoner, I can watch and protect Helios around the clock much more conveniently. And the same goes for him. The guard's words echoed in her mind. You will immediately enter the 20th floor of the tower. She knew very well that for Helios, who had only just reached the 8th floor, going straight to the 20th was basically a death sentence. But they said I have to go with him. She clenched her fist confidently. Suddenly, the scene shifted. It was as if she saw herself wearing sunglasses and a suit with a welcome banner behind her. In other words, welcome aboard the veteran driver's bus. Welcome, rookie, which means I have to carry him through. She made up her mind. I'll give you a hellish luxury limousine ride, Helios. In reality, Helios knew nothing of this. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, covering his face and muttering in misery. What even is all of this? Helios seemed too drained to dwell on it any longer. Wearily, he brought the topic back. More importantly, about what to call me. Suddenly, he burst out irritably. Call me whatever you want. It doesn't matter anyway. Really? Min asked back. Yeah. Helios stood and urgently asked. More importantly, what are you going to do now? What do you mean? What am I going to do? Since I'm a prisoner, then, as a prisoner, Min cut herself off mid-sentence. Suddenly, she raised a hand. Wait, what do you do? Before Helios could finish, his wrist was seized and he was pulled over. The next second, a hand was already on his cheek. Helios's whole body stiffened. His cheeks flushed red, and he was completely at a loss. He was utterly stunned, as though countless question marks had sprung up over his head. Helios stammered, What are you doing? Min's gaze sharpened, her pink eyes glinting. In a low voice, she said, Just as I thought. She thought to herself, there are signs of beatings all over him. He's in even worse condition than when he came out of the tower. After the rumors spread that a guard was protecting him, he seems to have been dragged into a lot of fights. What about other places? She pressed. What? Helios asked, confused. I mean the injuries. You were beaten. As Min spoke, she started pulling up Helios's prison shirt. Helios paled and cried, Wait, where are you touching? Didant. Min ignored him and lifted his shirt, exposing the bruises on his abdomen. Staring at the wounds, she pressed further. Where were you hit? Who did it? Tell me. Helios's face turned bright red as he answered awkwardly. What does whether I got beaten have to do with you? How could it not? She shot back, her tone carrying unquestionable certainty. She gazed at Helios, her voice softening a little, as though unreal flower petals were drifting through the air around them. You must have been beaten because of me. Cold sweat appeared along the side of Helios's face. He denied it at once. How would that be your fault? Nothing. Min instantly saw through his embarrassment and stepped closer, pressing him. So you mean no one hit you while mentioning my name? Rather than mumbling and trying to gloss it over, it would be better if you told me honestly. I don't know. Helios completely panicked, covering his mouth and turning his head away. He forced himself to shout. There was no one like that, all right? Min pondered for a moment, then suddenly pointed at him, the mood shifting at once. More importantly, what is with that tone? As if it were the most natural thing in the world, she explained. My tone? We're cellmates now, so of course I can speak more casually. Then she brought the topic back around again. Oh, right. What was it you're supposed to call me again? Hell looked thoroughly impatient. You really are stubborn. Not you, master. Min's voice seemed to carry a strange magic as it whispered softly by Hell's ear. She leaned in again, their faces nearly touching. In the thickly intimate atmosphere, she repeated the title in a coaxing tone. Staring at Hell, Min said seriously, Helios, the 20th floor of the tower is no joke. She warned him, from now on, if you don't study seriously, you'll die. She corrected him again. So not you, master. In the end, Hell gave in. Covering his burning face, he replied in a low voice, I understand. Master. The two held hands, and even their breathing seemed awkward. A satisfied smile curled at Min's lips. She praised him softly, good boy. Back in the cell, the two sat apart on their own beds. Min began, like I said before, starting from the 20th floor, things get very tricky. Looking at Hell, she continued, You can resent me, since I'm the one sending you there. Hearing that, Hell raised his head in confusion and answered calmly, I don't resent you. Even if you didn't, I'd still pretend to be kind and teach you properly, Min teased. Hell immediately bristled and snapped back. What the hell is that supposed to mean? He demanded loudly. Do you take me for the kind of guy who only talks big? Aren't you? Min shot back lazily, reclining against the bed. Hell immediately retorted, I'm not. It wasn't your fault in the first place. What's there to blame you for? With her eyes closed and a faint smile on her lips, she corrected him again. Not you, master. Stop that. Hell shouted, embarrassed and annoyed. Min's tone suddenly turned serious. Helios. She beckoned to him. Come here. Hell hesitated where he stood and asked, why? Even though he complained, he still obediently walked over and sat on the edge of her bed. Thinking with satisfaction, Min said, let me see, and reached out to push him down onto the bed. What? Hell asked, puzzled. She pulled up the blanket to cover herself, leaving only her eyes exposed, and said sweetly, almost coyly, please turn off the light, my disciple. Night fell, and the cell sank into darkness. Min quickly drifted off to sleep. Hell, however, lay on his own bed with his eyes open. He turned onto his side, his purple eyes shining brightly in the dark. Recalling their earlier conversation, he could not help asking himself, do you really feel no resentment at all? Hell turned over again, putting his back to the woman, but her words, I don't resent you, kept circling in his mind. He let out a long sigh. In the darkness, blood-stained memories began to surface. The memories dragged him back to that crimson night. He heard someone shouting, Helios, charge. It had been a one-sided massacre. A hideous-faced man, wearing an evil smile, had given the cruel order to slaughter the entire village and burn it to the ground. That mad laughter still seemed to echo in his ears. Hell jolted awake from the nightmare, his eyes full of terror. He sat bolt upright, gasping for breath, unable to tell dream from reality. Those brutal images kept crashing through his mind. He panted in agony, clutching at his clothes tightly. His whole body trembled. The hatred inside him could no longer be suppressed. In the depths of his heart, he roared, I hate them. Clenching both fists until his knuckles turned white, he swore a blood oath. I will never forgive them. Hell vowed inwardly, I have to find a way back to the ducal territory and take revenge on my damned father for all of this. He lowered his head and looked at his own hands, as if he could draw strength from them. Then he looked toward the cold iron bars. There was only one thought in his mind. So, I have to survive. His eyes grew razor-sharp, filled with icy resolve. No matter what happens, I will survive, and then I will take revenge. The thought was like a dagger, sinking deep in his heart, unshakable. The first faint light of dawn filtered into the cell. Min sat up on the bed, stretched broadly, and let out a long yawn. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and made a puzzled sound as her gaze landed on Hell across from her. Seeing Hell sitting on the edge of the bed, looking utterly dejected, she asked, what's wrong? Why the long face? Hell only replied flatly, leave me alone. Getting off the bed and stretching her body, Min said, the weather's so nice today. Cheer up. Without even lifting his head, Hell shot back. There aren't even any windows here. How do you know the weather's nice? Just a feeling, Min said. Hell answered coldly. Min looked at his back and thought, when I was his guard, he wasn't like this at all. The more she looked at him now, the more she felt Hell seemed like someone with a screw loose. Oh, right, Min suddenly said, breaking the silence. Starting from the 20th floor, prisoners can enter the tower at any time. He replied helplessly. There's no need to wait an entire week. And you're only telling me that now? Hell said, speechless. Min bluntly announced, you'll understand soon enough. We're going in today. Crossing one leg over the other, she asked leisurely, want a little advice? If you want to survive here, there are two things you absolutely need. With the air of someone speaking from experience, Min began teaching him. First, you need backing. Backing, Hell repeated in confusion. That's right. You're weak, so you need to stick close to the strong, Min explained. In that sense, you found yourself a pretty remarkable mentor. Looking at her self-congratulatory expression, complete with an imaginary halo of sparkling flower petals, Hell could not help snarking, isn't that just you bragging about yourself? Min continued with a serious expression, and second, before she could finish, a glowing golden rope suddenly appeared and wrapped around Hell's wrist. Before Hell could react, the rope yanked hard. He was dragged right off his feet and slammed to the floor. Hell cried out in pain, lying prone on the ground. He turned back angrily and demanded, what the hell are you trying to do? Smiling as she toyed with the glowing rope in her hand, Min answered lightly, training. She continued, I'll attack you like this from time to time, so try to protect yourself. Why would I need something like that? Hell shouted in bafflement. Min asked leisurely, do you think the attacks in the tower are going to be gentle and fair? Hell, still sprawled on the ground, found himself momentarily speechless. Min went on to explain the second point. That's where the second thing comes in, allies. She explained, you need allies who are on your level or stronger. No one survives here alone. Hell finally pushed himself up from the floor, thoughtful. Min's words took shape in Hell's mind like a school of sardines. We're like sardines. Only by gathering together can we drive off predators. Hell seemed to understand. Picking up the idea, he said, so we won't all get eaten at once. That depends on how you handle it. Spreading her hands, Min said lightly, anyway, that tip should be enough, right? Hell looked at her with open displeasure. Get up, Min said in a tone that allowed no argument. Min stood and declared in that same unquestionable tone, it's time to go into the tower. They arrived at the 20th floor. The sight before them made everyone freeze. Within towering stone walls stretched a boundless sea of golden wheat. A field. Hell looked around, his eyes full of confusion and caution. Nervous sweat rolled down his face. Standing behind him, Min simply gave a huge yawn, utterly unconcerned. Relax, relax. Min patted Hell on the back, trying to calm him. Looking back at her, he could not help saying, you're way too calm. She continued soothing him. Their completely different reactions formed a striking contrast. Looking around again, Hell muttered, but compared to the previous floors, there seemed to be way more people here. Of course, there are repeat challengers here, too, Min explained. Repeat challengers? Hell repeated, full of doubt. But if you fail, you die. So how? Just then, a grand voice rang through the entire space. Hey, you stray dogs. Is everyone here? The voice continued, we will now begin the trial of the 20th floor. Then, accompanied by mad laughter, it added, good luck. Good luck to all of you. Wahaha. Suddenly, the people around Hell and Min began vanishing like data, until only the two of them were left standing in the wheat field. Don't be too surprised, Min said to the stunned Hell beside her. From here on, participants are sometimes assigned to different spaces depending on their skills. Thinking it over, she went on, judging from the current situation, only first-time challengers were left here. Then she added, that should give you some idea of the difficulty level. Well then, Min patted Hell on the shoulder, gave him a thumbs up, and encouraged him with a smile. Do your best to stay alive. Leaning close to his ear, she added in a whisper, my dear student. Hell's face instantly darkened, a vein throbbing at his temple. Just then, a savage roar shattered the tension. Barking and growling followed, and then three ferocious hounds emerged from the shadows, their fangs and claws sharp, their eyes glowing red as they stared hungrily at them. Holding his spear and settling into a fighting stance, Hell cursed under his breath. Damn it, dogs this time. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the wheat field, a red-haired man was tackled to the ground by one of the hounds. He cried as he fell. Faced with the beast's gaping, blood-soaked jaws, he was scared out of his mind and begged desperately, please spare me. At that critical moment, a figure flashed by and sent the hound flying with a single punch. The red-haired man looked up in shock and confusion. There stood Hell in front of him, spear in hand, expression cold and sharp. Still shaken, the red-haired man said, Thank you. Thank you for saving me. Without turning around, Hell replied, the rest period's almost here. Just hold on a little longer. Okay, the red-haired man answered stiffly, then hesitantly added, sir, I have a question. At that moment, he noticed a brown-haired youth lying leisurely on a pile of hay not far away. Pointing in shock, he shouted, Who the hell is that guy? Smiling, Min asked back, What do you mean? Inwardly she thought, this is what a true mentor looks like, cheering on the disciple from afar. Watching the hounds get knocked away, she praised him inwardly. Good job. Seeing all three hounds lying on the ground, she praised him again in her heart. I'm proud of you too. Pointing at the reclining Min, the red-haired man asked Hell in confusion, Isn't that guy your companion? What exactly is he doing? At that moment, an orange-haired person also walked over and added, I want to ask that too. Seriously, who is that guy? I've never seen anyone like him. Looking exhausted, Hell answered, Even if you ask me, I honestly don't know either. Then his expression turned serious. More importantly, something feels off. It should be rest time now, so why are there more dogs? Hell looked around warily. Before he could finish speaking, even more hounds poured out of the darkness and surrounded them. Lying in the distance, Min curled her lips into a mysterious smile and thought, looks like Helios has started noticing it too. Hell's heart tightened. Are we supposed to keep fighting these dogs forever? With her chin propped on her hand, Min watched him with an amused smile in her eyes. Want another hint? Her voice drifted over from afar. Just then, Hell suddenly realized something. Covering her mouth with one hand, Min gently reminded him, Helios, stay alert. Her words were soft, yet carried undeniable weight. Something big is coming. Hell immediately understood what she meant, and his expression grew even grimmer. His pupils shrank. Everyone be careful. Something's coming, he shouted at the other two right away. The red-haired man and the orange-haired prisoner looked around nervously. What? What is it? What's coming? The dogs are rushing in again. The two cried in panic, then stopped. No, wait, that's not a dog. Staring straight ahead, Hell's face tightened. Damn it, I don't even know what that thing is. The instant his attention slipped, a huge black shadow silently emerged from the wheat. Sensing danger behind him, he heard his companion scream in terror. Hell whipped around and swung his spear, thrusting it with all his strength into the black shape behind him. After landing the blow, Hell kept his spear ready and watched the front warily. But the real threat had only just begun. Looking down at the shadow he had knocked down, his mind filled with confusion. A claw suddenly flashed. Another enormous black shape lunged at him from the side. Feeling a deadly threat, cold sweat instantly drenched his back. Oh no, there's another one behind me. He realized it was already too late. At that critical moment, a blue figure flashed by. Countless sharp attacks instantly shredded the black shadow. Hell stared in shock at what had happened before his eyes. Not a scratch on him. Somehow, Min had already arrived at his side and resolved the crisis in a single move. With a confident smile at the corner of her lips, she effortlessly deflected the attack amid a golden glow. As the light faded, she let out a long breath. Phew. She turned to the dumbstruck Hell behind her and smiled casually. As though the danger just now had been nothing at all, she said lightly, that was really a close one. After the glow dispersed, the two of them looked at the shadow that had just been struck down. They discovered it was actually a scarecrow. A scarecrow? Hell asked in bafflement, utterly speechless. Min merely smiled easily and joked, a fitting assassin for a wheat field, don't you think? Then she revealed the truth. This is the real boss of the 20th floor. She continued explaining the tower's rule. In a merciless battle, can you avoid an attack from behind? If not, then you die. That's what the tower is trying to tell you. Hilsedendly understood. Then those dogs just now? Min gave the answer. They were only bait to draw out the boss. Just bait, Hell repeated in disbelief. Holding his forehead, he muttered, this place is insane. At that moment, the grand voice rang out again and announced, trial complete. In a mocking tone, it continued, congratulations on surviving, stray dogs. See you on the next floor of Hell. After the trial ended, Min said to Hell, that was a relatively difficult stage, but you still made it through safely. Congratulations on clearing the 20th floor. Hell stood there with his arms stiff at his sides, and an awkward silence settled between them. If it weren't for Master, I'd already be dead, Hell said quietly. Min immediately put on an exaggeratedly touched expression, covering her mouth as she said, wow, so you do know how to say thank you after all? Hell inwardly complained, in what world did that count as a thank you? Seeing how downcast he looked, Min comforted him. Why so gloomy? At your current skill level, being able to take down even one scarecrow is already impressive. Patting Hell on the shoulder, she continued, the number of scarecrows that appear is adjusted according to your ability. Min thought to herself, even I didn't expect 2 scarecrows to appear. And that's exactly why I had to step in instead of just watching from the sidelines. The others had been injured, but they all survived. For a beginner team, that wasn't a bad result. All right, let's head out too, Min suggested. Hell only responded simply, okay. Following the others, they walked out of the wheat field. Hell walked ahead while Min trailed behind him, keeping some distance between them. Hell thought back on what had just happened, looking toward the place where Min had been lying earlier. His mind churned with thoughts as he remembered what she had said. The number of scarecrows that appear is adjusted according to your ability. Hell could not help but marvel. Seriously, looking at that companion stretching so casually with such an easy expression, he asked himself, just who are you? After they returned to the cell block, the prisoners dispersed in small groups. Hell stopped Min, his expression serious. Master, there's something I want to ask you. Recalling the surprise attack from that morning, Was it on purpose? Hell looked her straight in the eye. Were you trying to give me a hint? He went on to speculate, to help prepare me for those attacks that come without any warning. Hearing this, Min revealed a sly smile and commented, you really are naive. Lowering her voice, Min whispered by Hell's ear, save questions like that for when we're alone. Hell instantly reacted like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, a vein twitching on his forehead as he hissed, you little. Min pretended not to hear and leisurely stretched. Hell, meanwhile, hopped in place in frustration and shouted, are you seriously insane? Min merely praised him. Your reactions are pretty quick, you know. Just then, the red-haired man whom Hell had rescued earlier walked over. Hey, there you are. Min immediately ducked behind Hell, showing only half her face. The red-haired man saw her and said, you're the one from before. Then he held out his hand to Hell and asked with a smile, do you remember me? Il replied, collé. After giving him a look over, he asked in confusion, but weren't you badly injured before? From behind Hell, Min poked her head out and explained, starting from the 20th floor, once you come out, all your injuries are healed. That's how it works. Pretty amazing, right? Min had it. Hell looked stunned. What? Thanks to you, I survived just now, the red-haired man said sincerely, then introduced himself. My name is Gady Sadian. Hell also extended his hand to shake his and simply gave his own name. Helios. Min muttered inwardly, always so prickly, and now he's actually responding to other people. Then she analyzed further. Or is it just me he's prickly with? She answered herself, yes. Looking at Hell, she wondered why though. Is it because I used to be his guard, and that makes him uncomfortable? Then she reached a conclusion. He's the type who has no self-awareness at all about his own behavior. Gady said warmly to Hell, nice to meet you, brother. Ha ha. Resting her chin on her hand, Min watched the scene. Gady gave Hell a thumbs up and praised him enthusiastically. You were incredible. So manly. Min inwardly grumbled, humph. So he's the type to slap nicknames on people casually, huh? However, Min walked straight past Gady, completely ignoring him. Gady froze in place. Hell walked over to Min and asked in confusion, why are you ignoring him? Min asked back coldly, why should I pay attention to him? What? Hell wanted to say more, but Min cut him off. I'm not interested. Her voice was cold, without a trace of emotion. Looking at Min's profile, Hell felt as if blue petals were drifting through the air around her. Then he heard her low voice by his ear. The only one I care about is you. In her purple eyes, only his reflection remained. Those sudden words made Hell's whole body jolt. Oh, what are you? Min immediately explained, not in the way you're thinking. I mean as your master. Hell let out a breath of relief and complained, that's not the point. Fine, master. You really have a talent for saying things that are easy to misunderstand. Being misunderstood? That's pretty hurtful, Min said. Hearing that, Hell spoke with a hint of grievance. You're the only one who can help me escape. If that's the case, then there's nothing I can do, he muttered to himself, shyly covering his mouth. Seeing that, Min asked, why are you nodding to yourself like that? Hell confessed, honestly, I thought Master was just kind to all the prisoners. Hell gave a bright smile, as if white lilies had bloomed all around him. Seeing that, Min was stunned inwardly. Wow, the destructive power of that face is way too strong. Of course not. Min suddenly withdrew her smile and said with complete seriousness, you're not one of my assigned prisoners. Pointing to herself, she added matter-of-factly, after all, I'm a guard. So that's why Hell came to a realization, while also feeling both exasperated and flustered. Oh, Min spotted the orange-haired prisoner who had spoken with Hell earlier. That's Mr. Hella. Seeing that Hella had already climbed this high in the tower, she thought, looks like Daryl and Ramona have been taking good care of him. Min turned to look at Hell and found him staring fixedly at Hella's departing back, cheeks slightly flushed. What kind of expression is that? Min asked. It felt as if blue petals were floating around them again. Is he your type? Hell did not answer. So Min leaned closer and asked in confusion. It's just that you were staring at him so intently just now. Then she could not help laughing. What? Looking at Hell, she teased, you look like a little kid who's lost the spotlight. Hell instantly turned away in anger and shouted, what the hell? You really are a child. Come on, baby. Let's go back to our room. Min continued teasing. Hell, embarrassed and irritated, shot back. Stop talking nonsense. They walked one after the other. When Hell disappeared around the corner, the orange-haired prisoner looked at his departing back and murmured softly to himself, as if confirming something. Then he quickly followed after them. The atmosphere between the two once again became subtly strange. A few days later, as the announcement of another completed trial echoed through the tower, Congratulations on surviving the 23rd floor. Trial complete. Hell, and Min stood in front of the exit gate. Hell's face was bright red, and he looked extremely uncomfortable, while Min beside him appeared rather calm. Hell thought in utter frustration. Why does that thing keep showing up ever since the 21st floor? Pointing somewhere in horror, he shouted, "What? That bug." Min immediately stopped him. "Don't say it out loud." Looking at Hell, who was terrified out of his mind by a giant cartoonish insect, Min thought speechlessly, "Are you really that scared of bugs?" Covering his face with his hand, Hell shouted back, "I'm not scared. It's just that anyone would hate something that huge, right?" Smiling, Min teased, "Ha, but you won't even dare call a bug. Are you really a child? Who are you calling a child?" Hell demanded, trembling with anger. Just then, Gady's voice came from the doorway. "Helios." Gady and his companions were standing at the entrance, greeting them enthusiastically. "Gady, and this is my team," Gady introduced excitedly. "It's truly an honor to finally meet you, sir." He went on excitedly. "Wow, was that giant swatter yours earlier?" Gady recalled the scene of Min flattening the bug with an enormous fly swatter. "A fly swatter? Seriously, that was amazing." "Yeah, the way you smashed that bug flat with a fly swatter," listening to Gady's praise. Min only responded faintly. Looking at the group before her, Min asked coolly, "What do you want?" She continued, "You all came over here, so you obviously have something to say." Gady and his companions hesitated and exchanged glances. Please teach us too, master." Taking the lead, Gady bowed deeply together with his companions toward Min. She refused without hesitation. "No, what?" Gady could not believe his ears. Min repeated coldly, "I said no. Why should I teach you?" But I heard you used to be a guard." "Guards are supposed to protect prisoners," Gady hurriedly explained. "That's not a reason for me to teach you." Min cut him off. Folding her arms, she delivered a final order. "If that's all you came to say, then leave. Stop bothering me." Min turned as if to go, then added coolly, "If you're looking for a teacher, try the Western Lounge. You might find a decent one there." The orange-haired prisoner said dejectedly, "I doubt anyone would take us and no matter where we go." Hearing that, Min stopped walking. She thought, come to think of it, isn't he the one even Daryl and Ramona refused to take because of what he did? But that has nothing to do with me. Is that so? Hearing Min murmur to herself, the orange-haired prisoner looked puzzled. Min did not answer. He lowered his head in disappointment. "But that's not my problem, right?" Min said coldly, looking at their retreating backs. "You sound like a villain," Hell said calmly as he looked at Min. "Was that for my sake?" Min asked back. Pointing in the direction the group had gone, Hell said, "Shouldn't you at least ask them why?" "Why what?" Min asked, puzzled. "They said no one would take them in," Hell explained. Min thought to herself of, "So this really bothers you." Then she added inwardly, "At times like this, you really do look like the protagonist." "My dear disciple, you seem to have forgotten something." Turning around, Min reminded him, "This is a prison." Looking at several prisoners in the distance, she continued, "There's no one here worthy of sympathy." Her gaze turned cold, "And no one here can be called a villain either." She concluded mercilessly, "They're all trash." At that moment, a man suddenly charged over and punched Hell in the face. Gady's group had returned, and they had Gady pinned to the ground as they cursed at him viciously. "You worthless pest! Quit acting so high and mighty." One man yanked Gady by the hair and threatened, "Hand over the woman behind you, and we'll let you go." Gady struggled in pain, while his companions watched coldly. The orange-haired prisoner looked on in horror. Seeing Hell and Min standing not far away, he acted as if he had found a lifeline and shouted, "Help! Please, save me!" Hell, however, tugged on Min and said coldly, "Let's go." Shocked, Min stared at him. "You're not going to do anything? I told you before. Why should I?" Hell asked back, "What do you mean, why?" Min pressed, "I can't afford to get into trouble." Hell cut her off. Looking at Min, he explained, "I'm a guard." Hell stepped closer to Min and looked straight into her eyes, reminding her once again, "Don't forget, I came here for you." His voice was gentle but firm. "You're the only one I need to worry about." Min's cheeks flushed and her heart started racing. Stammering, she said, How can you say something like that?" At that moment, the orange-haired prisoner's scream shattered the intimate atmosphere between them. One man grabbed him by the hair and cackled wildly. "Let go of me," the orange-haired prisoner cried, struggling in pain. Watching the scene, Hell asked Min, "Does it bother you that much?" Then he continued, "Then go help them." Hell's hand lightly touched Min's shoulder, and their eyes met in the air. Hell continued, "I didn't raise you just so you could lose to trash like that." Leaning in close, he asked, "Right?" Hell's cheeks reddened, and he fell silent. "Whether you say it or not, I was going to do it anyway," Hell said stubbornly. Clenching his fists, he turned and charged at the group. What? Who the hell is this guy now? One of the men asked in surprise when he saw Hell rushing over. Arms folded, Min watched Hell's back and thought, "Aw, little Shing." In her mind, a gentle voice echoed, "Let's make a promise with Mother. We'll help anyone who's in trouble." Coming back to herself and looking at the scene before her, she said coldly, "What are you talking about? Why should I help them?" she continued. "Besides, do you know how many people like them there are?" A white-haired woman smiled and said, "No, I won't." Then she continued with a suggestion. "How about this? You only need to help the people within your reach." Hell punched one of the men in the face and knocked him to the ground. Looking at Hell's back, Min thought in confusion, "They're all criminals here. Why the hell should I help them?" That white-haired woman's voice rang through Min's mind again. "Because you have to live here. I just don't want you to lose your nature." Hell knocked the last man to the ground. The fight was over. With her arms crossed, Min looked at him and commented blandly, "For low-level fodder. What? How can a low-level nobody like him use?" One of the men stared at the energy gathered in Hell's hand and shouted in shock. Struggling to maintain the energy, Hell let out a muffled grunt. HNH. One of the men tried to reassure his companion. "Don't be scared. Obviously, a flimsy trick like that won't last long." Looking at the two men in front of him, Hell cursed inwardly. Damn it, he knew they were definitely stronger than him. It would be hard to find an opening. A sharp light flashed in Hell's eyes. "If that's the case, then I'll make an opening myself." One of the men shouted, "I can't lose to a low-level nobody," and threw a punch at Hell. Hell shifted aside, and the fist grazed his cheek. An opening. Hell seized the opportunity. He condensed the energy in his hand into a blade, preparing to counterattack. Hell sent a bald man flying with a single strike. "Have you lost your mind? A low-level nobody just sent an elite lackey flying." The two men left behind could not believe their eyes. "Damn it, everyone attacked together. Kill him." One of them shouted in furious humiliation. Holding the energy blade, Hell said coldly, "I don't think so." He struck swiftly and knocked the last man to the ground as well. "Aya!" The man screamed and lay there barely breathing, begging Hell for mercy. "Save me, Aya!" Looking at Hell, Min flicked her hand and said with a smile, "It's been a while since I used only my bare hands. Honestly, it was kind of disappointing." Then she added, looking at her, Hell said, "You said you wouldn't interfere. What should I do?" Leaning close to Hell's ear, she whispered softly, "My disciple was being bullied, so of course the master had to step in." "Then why are you blushing?" Hell asked in confusion. "I don't know." Min shouted, flustered. A uniformed man looked at the documents in his hand and said to Min, "I really didn't expect you to deliberately involve yourself in a prisoner fight in the cafeteria. Was your intention to remind the higher-ups of your existence?" Covering his mouth, the man chuckled softly. If that was your intention, it succeeded." Min thought, this person really loves making assumptions on his own. Outwardly, she apologized. "I am sorry." But the man said, No, I actually found it quite interesting. Still, you need to clean up this mess. Do you have any way to handle it?" he asked. Min replied, "We could just follow the manual, can't we?" "According to which clause?" the man pressed. "I heard you weren't directly attacked." Min recited fluently. "Guard Manual, Article 7, Special Clause. When a guard repeatedly hears insults, ridicule, or contemptuous remarks above a certain threshold, the guard may impose disciplinary measures at their discretion." Ridicule, is it?" the man said thoughtfully. Min thought to herself, I didn't hear directly, but Gady explained it. The reason Gady and our group clashed with them in the first place was because of you and that prisoner." "What do you mean?" Min asked. "Some people said some really vile things about the two of you," Gady recalled as he added, "like cursing you too and saying all kinds of disgusting things." Min guessed, probably something like those two are fooling around and so on. "So that's why you stepped in?" Min asked. The orange-haired prisoner explained, "No matter what, I already owed you my life. And besides, I'm not the type who can tolerate that sort of thing." Min sighed. Meddling. "I know how to repay a favor," the prisoner said. "Though I do regret it now," he continued. "You never know. Maybe one day you'll owe me instead." Because of my association with that prisoner, what sort of ugly rumors will I have to hear?" The man continued. "As a noble, hearing those things and doing nothing must have been difficult. I understand. You may leave now. I'll deal with this matter myself." Min bowed and said, "Thank you, sir." Then she turned to look at Hell. "Is there a problem?" Hell asked. Behind him stood a group of people. Min answered, "It's more or less settled." "Why do you keep letting them follow you?" Gady asked in confusion. Excuse me." "Thank you for helping us, sir." Gady called out to Min, gathering his courage. "I wasn't helping you in particular." "Move aside," Min answered coldly. But still, one prisoner tried to say more. Could you teach us a thing or two as well? Another added. Min glanced back at them and refused without hesitation. No, really not. Hela asked, unwilling to give up. No means no, Min answered decisively. Looking at Hela, she added, not you. Purple energy radiated around Hela, and Min noticed it immediately. Sensitive to mental power, she shouted, Helios. Hel suddenly felt a burst of intense pain and crouched down, clutching his head. Min looked at Hela, her gaze turning cold. Wait, don't misunderstand, Hela hurriedly explained. I just let him know. Hela defended himself. Recalling Gaity's words, some people had said disgusting things about the two of you. He added, in that story you heard, Helios was involved too. Holding her forehead, Min thought, I didn't know he'd suddenly use telepathy. Then two golden spheres of light suddenly fell from the sky and smashed into Hela's group. The prisoners cried out in pain. Watching the scene coldly, Min said, I hate things that act out of control. So she raised her hand, preparing to attack again. Hel suddenly grabbed Min's clothes and stopped her. W8, Hel said with difficulty. What? Min asked. Hel kept his head lowered and asked softly, Can you help them, master? Why should I help them? Min asked in return. Because they ended up like that because of us, Hel explained. Nonsense. Min cut him off. Hel wanted to say more, but Min had already started moving. Don't get the wrong idea, she said coldly. Looking at Hel, who had collapsed onto the floor, she continued, Even if they did it for us, that doesn't mean we have any obligation to take responsibility for the result. Remember that. Min said this to Hel. Slumped on the ground, Hel whispered, I know. I'm someone who exists only for you. Then why are you still so stubborn? Min asked. But my companions, Hel said painfully. Looking up at Min, he demanded, Didn't you tell me to make allies? In the distance, Gaity was holding the injured Hela and shouting anxiously. Smiling as if she could see straight through Hel's thoughts. Min looked at him and said, That's right. First, let's make one thing clear. Pointing at Hel, Min said to everyone, The leader you'll be following is this person. Understood. Why, yes. Everyone answered in unison. Good. Then introduce yourselves. A green light flashed through Min's eyes. Let me see what kind of talents you have, she thought. She activated one of her mental abilities, one that allowed her to see a person's aptitude. I am Geet Satan. Min saw a muscle and skeleton type. His potential is good. I am Hela. Sorry about earlier. Min saw a mental type. Main ability, illusion with some telepathy. EM Sef Krigan. Min saw a material type. Wait, what is that? He's hiding something astonishing. Brett Bormo. Ha. Nice to meet you. A green-haired man laughed as he spoke. Min judged inwardly. His impression is quite fierce and clumsy. No matter how you look at it, this is pretty surprising. She continued thinking, where did a combination like this come from? Setting aside the fact that their skills are actually quite good, I never expected them to have abilities perfectly suited to supporting the male lead. Looking at Hel, Min thought he couldn't possibly have known that when he chose them. Is this the power of the world's protagonist? That's enough introductions, Min said. Mr. Hela. Yes, Hela answered. Min warned him, don't provoke me again the way you did before by poking at Helios. You won't get a second chance. Both Hela and Gaity could feel the threat in Min's words. Yes, Hela replied quietly. Looking at Min and Hel, he asked in confusion, but what exactly is the relationship between you two? It doesn't look like a simple prisoner and guard arrangement. You don't need to know that, Hel said, pulling Min over so she leaned against him. Min said to Hel, I only have Helios. Then she continued, you should treasure things that are one of a kind. Hel shyly covered his mouth with his hand. Turning to Hela, Min explained, to correct the misunderstanding, as you can see, my master lacks a bit of common sense. What? Why are you suddenly making me out to be someone with no common sense? Heel hoted, frustrerad. Min looked at him with an innocent face. Isn't it because the way my master talks is so easy to misunderstand? Heel retorted. Min suddenly leaned close to him and asked, why have you started speaking informally again? Hel answered as if it were obvious, because I want to. Watching their strange interaction, Hela thought in confusion. One of them is the absolute type. Ugh, Seth groaned in pain, and a glowing magic circle appeared in the palm of his hand. There we go. We still have a lot to do. This time, it's a fracture. Looking at Seth, Gaity called out, Hey Helios, has training always been like this? Like this? Hel asked, confused, awakening Seth by using such malicious methods. Come over here and treat the injured. An order rang out. My mother. Seth looked puzzled. That's right. You have healing ability. Min said. But I'm an elemental telekinetic user, Seth said. Oh, so you still don't know your own ability? Looks like you haven't awakened yet. Healing? I've never heard of anything like that, Seth said. Oh, it's fine, Min replied. It doesn't matter if you still can't use it now. I have a method. At times like this, extreme circumstances are best. Right now, if you don't treat them, your companions will die. If you don't save them, your comrades will die. Even if it was only an illusion, making the dying appear before him did the trick. Because of that, a new ability awakened. But the situation remained cruel all the same. Well done. This really hit the mark this time. Also, Seth trembled. I know. You've been carrying all of this alone for a long time. Grabbing Hell timidly, Gady said, You're disgusting. Get lost, Hell snapped. But seeing how well they work together with one another, Min wondered, are they just lacking training? You're too weak, Hella, Min said. The stronger your ability is, the greater their mental resistance will be, so you have to work harder. I understand, Hella said meekly. The training progressed relatively smoothly. Yesterday, they had also safely cleared up to the tower's 24th floor. However, the problem was that from the 25th floor upward, things would no longer be so easy. Tower, 25th floor. A scream tore through the silence. What's that? Someone asked in confusion, staring at the scarecrow that had been knocked to the ground. Why haven't the completion bells rung, even though we defeated all the scarecrows? Gady asked in confusion. Obviously because it's not over yet, Min said with folded arms. What? Hell asked. That means there's another trial, Min explained. The group paled in shock. What's going on? Why did the wall in the middle open? A prisoner cried in terror. On the other side of the wall, a new group of challengers appeared. Umans. Are there other challengers on this floor too? Hell looked at them and immediately felt a bad premonition. No way. Don't tell me those people are the final opponents. That's right. Min confirmed his guess. You're getting sharper and sharper now. Their numbers and skills are much better, Min thought. Then she said to Hell, I'll handle this side. Where are you going? Hell asked, grabbing her. Unfortunately, with my student's current strength, it's still too much, Min said, watching the battle in front of her. Wait, Hell stopped her. Are you going to kill those people? Yes, that's what this floor exists for, Min explained. Then she continued, Can you kill your opponent in order to survive? That's what this tower demands of us. Go kill. Min gave Hell the order. Grabbing a man by the throat, Min said, You're the last one. I'm going up now. The man struggled in agony. All right, Min said to him with a smile. You can go next time. We're in a hurry this time. Help. The man was thrown from the high tower, letting out a scream of absolute despair. Hell looked on in shock, unable to say a word. Trial complete. Congratulations, wild dogs. The grand voice rang out once again. For those who failed, there will be another chance. For those who succeeded, enjoy the next hell. Hell lowered his head, his expression complicated. Failure means death, so another chance is a ridiculous contradiction, he thought. I never expected you to step up and lead at the end. A leader really is amazing, Gady said to Min. He looks even more handsome up close. Look at him. He's really incredible. Seth and Brett chimed in as well. Hell looked at them, his expression tangled and unreadable. Everyone, are you all right? Gady asked. What? You went through a lot too. Thanks to you, we survived today. Biting his lip, Hell said, That's not what I mean. Someone died. But What are you talking about? Gady asked in confusion. Does he really not know? Someone asked. It's possible he doesn't, Hella said. Helios, Gady said, pointing in one direction. Look over there. Hell looked toward where Gady pointed and saw the man Min had thrown from the tower just now. The man said angrily, I was supposed to go up this time, but that person clearly died on the 20th floor earlier. From now on, any injuries will disappear when the trial ends. The same goes for those who died, Hell explained. Like a miracle, they revive when the trial ends. Hell continued, Do you really know nothing? Late at night, Hell sat on the bed with both hands covering his face, clearly in pain. Aren't you going to sleep? Min asked. Why didn't you tell me? He demanded. Looking at him, Min said, You might have gone up there, and then you would have been miserable over it the whole time. He continued, Well, of course. I wanted you to realize it for yourself. You have to understand what kind of hell this is. It's to make people develop the will to win, right? Min continued, In this place, prisoners have to keep dying and killing as they climb the tower. Min thought, even if you try to escape through death, it just revives you. In the end, you can't die, and you can't refuse its trials. This is how human beings are destroyed, Min thought. You can never recover what you've lost. Looking at Hell, she continued, So, I want you to climb the tower without dying even once. What's at the top of the tower? Hell asked. A way out, Min replied. If you reach the top, you can escape from here. She explained, I really want you to get out. Min said to Hell, because this place is a living hell. Suddenly, Min's hair turned blue. Hell stared at her in confusion. Min turned and walked deeper into the tower, leaving Hell behind alone. What was that? Hell muttered, staring at her retreating figure. What was that? Hell looked at Min as departing back in shock. A woman, he murmured. Back in the cell, Min had already returned to the appearance of a brown-haired young man. Her eyes were closed, while Hell sat on the bed watching her. Min noticed his gaze and turned to look at him. What are you staring at? She asked. It disappeared, Hell asked in confusion. Hell grew even more confused. Was I hallucinating? Hurry up and sleep, Min said. Tomorrow will be exhausting too. Okay. Hell answered stiffly and lay down. Hell's cheeks flushed as he looked at Min, his heart full of questions. The 28th floor. Miss Hella, stop that mantis over there. And stop this side too, a man shouted. I know, so shut up, you idiot, Hella replied impatiently, while behind him Seth quietly cried for help. Hell said to Brett, follow me in 3 seconds. Leave it to me, Brett replied confidently. Min watched them and thought, they're all doing well. Their individual skills have improved, and they work together well too. Not bad at all, Min thought with a smile. Damn it, there are more again, a man shouted in panic. This time, we have to deal with those people too before it ends, right? Min thought to herself. In fact, in the final trial, there was no need to kill the opposing challengers. As long as the condition was met, render every member of the opposing team unable to fight, it counted. All right, we'll use the same plan again, Hell said. After learning this, Helios's team decided to simply defeat everyone. You know it's harder to knock people out than to kill them, Min said helplessly, spreading her hands. They're just making things harder for themselves. All right, let's go, Gady shouted as he led the team, charging at the enemy. A grand voice rang out again. Floor 28 cleared. Congratulations. The wild dogs. It's over, Hella said with relief. I thought I was really going to die this time. Brett was also still shaken as he said, seriously, it would have been easier to just kill them. Gady laughed. But I think the captain made the right decision, he continued. And thanks to that, my skills improved too. Hell shoved them away in disgust and said, stay away from me. Min thought, anyway, the climb is going smoothly. But the real problem is, looking at Hell, she called his name. Helios. Hell turned to look at her and asked in confusion, what is it? Min looked at Hell and thought, he's been like this lately. Nothing, Min answered. The atmosphere here is so weird, Brett said with a laugh. He leaned close to Min's ear and whispered, hey boss, did you secretly beat up the captain or something? Not recently, Min replied. Oh, I was just joking, but you really did hit him, Brett asked in surprise. Min smiled smugly. Yeah, anyway, I'm a very open-minded person, Brett said. But if you two could keep your lovers' quarrels to a minimum, I'd appreciate it. Hell was so stunned he couldn't speak and stared at Brett in bafflement. Well then, I'll get going first, Brett said before leaving. Hell covered his face with his hand, while Min looked at him and thought, what was that? Is he jealous because he wants to be trained too? I'm sure that definitely wasn't what teacher meant, Hell thought to himself. Teacher, there's something I want to ask, Hell said, looking at Min. Min looked at him, waiting for him to continue. Do you happen to have a younger sister? Hell asked. What the hell? Why suddenly ask about his sister? Min thought, you should be asking about strategy, not this. She continued thinking, of course, I'm an only child. No, wait, right now I'm Garrett, Min thought. I have a younger sister, she answered. Does she look like you? He had pressed it. Why are you so curious about that? Min asked in return. That is an important question for me, Hell said, blushing. Well, she's fictional anyway, Min thought. Then she replied. Her hair color is the same as mine, but her facial features are different. Gesturing with her hand, she said, her eyes tilt upward like this. Watching the cute gesture, Hell thought, can someone's eyes really slant that much? You just need a rough idea, Min said. And, well, she's pretty. I knew it, Hell murmured. What? Min asked, covering his face with his hand. Hell said, I'm losing control. It's nothing. What else? Her hair is long, probably down her waist, Min continued. Hell listened, looking at her thoughtfully. Late at night, Hell tossed and turned on the bed. Her hair is long. Min's words echoed in his mind. Why did I suddenly? Hell muttered to himself. If only teacher had long hair. He suddenly sat upright, grabbed his own hair, and shouted in agony, I'm going crazy. Am I even sane right now? What the hell am I thinking? He looked at his own hands, on the verge of collapse. What are you doing? Min's voice came. She was wiping her wet hair with a towel, as she looked to Hel. Teacher, why do you look like that? Hel stammered as he stared at her. A towel hung around Min's neck and shoulders, her hair damp, her gaze hazy. I just took a bath. What do you mean by that? She asked in confusion. Calm down, Hel told himself. He thought this is all because of that weird thought just now. Looking at Min, Hel stressed himself inwardly. That person is a man. I'm a man too. Hel unconsciously moved closer to Min, inwardly stammering his own name. Helios. Helios. Min cupped his face and called his name. Hel suddenly snapped back to his senses and asked in panic. WH what? See? You've been acting strange, Min said. Still holding his face, she continued. Your face has gotten thinner, and you've looked pale this whole time. You haven't been sleeping well, have you? She asked with concern. I've been sleeping fine, Hel replied awkwardly, his cheeks red. Do you want me to stay up all night and watch you sleep? Min asked. Are you serious? Hel shouted, embarrassed and annoyed. And then Min thought, in this condition, the next floor will be too much for him. In a small voice, Hel admitted, I just haven't slept well. Just a little. Min thought, he's such a troublesome guy. That won't do, Min said. How about I knock you out with one punch, so you can get some proper sleep? Why would you joke about something so terrifying? Hel said fearfully. Don't worry. If I'm careless, you might die instantly, but I'm very good at controlling my strength, Min continued. You really shouldn't say things like that so casually. Then there's only one option left, she said. Come on, lie down. She reached out, preparing to push Hel onto the bed. Wait, what are you doing? Hel asked in confusion. I'm going to help you fall asleep, Min said. Someone once told me that at times like this, human warmth works well. In Min's mind, a gentle voice resurfaced. Mother. A white-haired woman held the young Min in her arms, smiling softly. My disciple has so many things she dislikes, Min thought. She lifted the blanket and prepared to lie down beside Hel. Who told you that? Hel asked. Your mother? Something like that, Min replied. Now let's sleep. The two lay on the bed, hand in hand. If you stay up any later, tomorrow will be rough, she added. Good night, Min said softly. Hel's hand gently rested over hers. Why do you talk to me like I'm a child? Hel protested in a small voice, his cheeks flushed. Looking at Min, his heart was filled with complicated emotions. A tender, intimate atmosphere spread between them. Hel's breathing gradually steadied. At last, he closed his eyes and fell fast asleep. Min nestled against him and peacefully drifted off as well. The two shared this rare moment of quiet. Is it maintenance time? Min asked. Yes, a man in uniform answered. The entire tower is under maintenance. No one can enter for the time being, he added. So that means the prisoner's leader has changed? Min asked. The highest-ranking prisoner is also the king of prisoners, a voice said. A long-haired man sat on a magnificent throne, exuding an overwhelming presence. The leader of the tower actually has considerable influence, because they can partially interfere with the tower's trials, a voice said. In the scene, a huge hand manipulated the monsters in the trial like puppets. When the leader changes, the tower undergoes temporary maintenance. You really memorized the guard manual. You know everything, the man said. Min looked at him with unwavering eyes. Yes, and as far as I know, before I started working here, the leader had already been replaced once. If the person who became leader came after my time, Min thought, then whether they're quiet or not, they won't be easy to deal with. Yes, and then a few months later, they were replaced again. That's unusual, the man said. Who was it? Min asked. I don't know either. Rumor says it was a woman, the man answered. A woman. Min repeated, whoever it is, Min thought the content of the trials may have changed. The 29th floor. WH, what is this? A prisoner asked in terror at the sight before him. Why is the wheat field so red? Hel asked in confusion as he looked ahead. Gady hid behind Hel, trembling. The new leader must really like red, Min guessed. Everyone, be careful, Min warned. There's a very good chance we'll be facing a boss completely different from the one on the last floor. Min looked at the scene before her with a grim expression. Countless giant black snakes burst out of the wheat field, flicking their tongues. That was close. Phew, a man said, panting. It's my first time seeing something that can spray poison gas, a man said. Hey, even the scarecrows are talking. Is this what the boss meant? Looking at the scene before her, Min thought to herself, standing amid the wreckage with a grave expression. Min sensed something, and her eyes sharpened. Anyway, we're safe now, right? A man said. Min looked at him coldly. Boss, what are you doing? A man asked. A golden light radiated from Min's entire body. Sorry, everyone, she said. Good children should step back and rest. Hey, wait, everyone cried out in fear. The golden light exploded in an instant. Aya! A man let out a scream of despair. When the light faded, Gady had been knocked to the ground, writhing in pain. Ah, isn't that way too rough? Gady said in shock as he watched. Meanwhile, Helios landed safely without a scratch. Can't be helped. Our princess is precious, Min said with a smile. Who are you calling a princess? Hel shouted, embarrassed and furious. All right, enough chatting, Min said. Her eyes sharpened as she looked at the giant snake ahead. It's time to deal with this thing. A massive black snake emerged from the darkness, flicking its tongue. Min walked toward the giant snake, preparing for battle. What is that? A man shouted in terror. The giant snake flicked its tongue, venom dripping onto the ground with a sizzling, corrosive hiss. What the hell? A man cried out in fear. This thing can even poison prisoners from the upper floors. What kind of ridiculous difficulty is this? Min thought. How exactly is Helios supposed to deal with something like this right now? Min looked at Hel. In Hel's hand, golden energy was gathering, ready to strike. There's another strange thing too, a man said. Recently, several upper floor prisoners have died. Really? Min asked. Yes, that doesn't happen often either. Things have become chaotic, the man replied. Min looked at him with unwavering eyes. The tower's difficulty level has changed abnormally, and prisoners from the 80th floor and above have already died. The serpent let out a painful shriek as golden energy burst from Min's hand. She smiled as she looked at the giant snake before her and let out a light laugh. Just who became the leader? Min thought. She stared into the darkness ahead with a grave expression. Something in the shadows seemed to be stirring. A purple-haired woman approached, humming to herself. She suddenly stopped. Still no news? She asked. Don't ask me, another voice replied. But if you don't know, then who does? Even the twins said they didn't know, a blue-haired man said. I already told you, I don't know either, said Doris, the prisoner from the 92nd floor, irritably. What on earth is the warden thinking? Is it really okay to make that person the leader? Everyone got attacked. They're trying to kill us, said a person wearing an eye patch. Another person stood silently nearby. Wait until the leader comes back, a voice said. Oh, so you were all here. A pink-haired woman approached with a smile. She stepped in front of them and said, Ramona. Doris cried out in terror. You all are really good at hiding from me, Ramona said. Covering her face, Ramona gave a light laugh. I am Hurt. More importantly than the heart of Ramona Tower's leader, what does everyone think of the tower's difficulty? She asked. I put a lot of thought into making it interesting, you know. Oh, you mean the difficulty setting aimed at killing all of us? Doris shot back angrily. Oh my, but isn't that the whole point? Ramona said with a laugh. Only the strongest person on each floor should survive. Stop talking nonsense. You destroyed the entire system the leader built, Doris shouted. So what? What's wrong with that? Ramona asked in return. Min's silhouette looked especially lonely among the flowers. This is bad. With the leader not here to complain to, the leader still hasn't come back, right? Ramona said, taking a step forward, her eyes full of provocation. Oh, I hope they come back soon and kill me, Ramona said with a look of ecstasy. That would be thrilling. You crazy bitch, Doris muttered as she looked at her. Oh, aren't we all? Ramona said with a laugh, her face twisted with excitement. I'm so bored. So until the leader comes back, let's play. Daryl. In the darkness, a giant red snake stirred. Min, holding a glowing spear, walked toward the giant serpent. This feeling is awful, she said. I know this is a strange time to say it, but Gady said, looking at her. Boss, you're human, right? Gady asked uncertainly as he looked at Min. Hel stared at Min, his eyes filled with doubt. Min's back looked especially mysterious in the darkness, utterly unstoppable. Hel thought, it's an enormous power. It feels like the tower itself. Hel looked at Min with a complicated expression. Who exactly are you? He asked. Hel stared at Min, his eyes full of confusion. Min did not answer, only looked at him quietly. Her hair gradually turned blue and fluttered in the air. She looked at Hel, her eyes filled with complicated emotion. It's happening again, Hel murmured as he looked at her.